Chapter 52-32. To be honest, the person who could help the most at this time should be the acting island master Okuda. Even if he did not have the personal experience of soul projection, he could at least come forward and ask Southern Sky Aurora, and he could also consult the island master pavilion steward in this area. It was a pity that Okuda was a pure outsider after all, and he was also a very high-ranking person. Previously, he had been troubled twice by the matter of sending the letter. Tian-chan and the others were already a little uneasy. If they ran to him again when there was a slight problem, it would be too much. Even if the other party did not say it, they would also feel bad. Soon, Wei Shinjin found Kai Zhongyang and Ho Guanqi. The two hurriedly walked into the room, and when they saw Lin Yi's state, they revealed a look of surprise at the same time and looked at each other. What did the two senior brothers see? Tian-chan asked quickly. He hasn't woken up yet, right? Kai Zhongyang and Ho Guanqi looked at each other and asked. No, what's wrong? Tian-chan and Sydney both shook their heads. So far, although Lin Yi's aura was strong to the extreme, and even caused chaos downstairs, and had to temporarily close the shop, he really did not have any intention of waking up. Since he hasn't woken up, why is this situation happening to him? Kai Zhongyang looked inexplicable. This situation? Tian-chan and Sydney were stunned when they heard this. You have experienced this situation before, isn't it a sign before a breakthrough? Ho Guanqi explained. Breakthrough? Lin Yi is going to break through? The two women finally reacted. They were typical people who were closely involved in the situation, and because they were too worried, they forgot that this familiar scene was a unique sign before a breakthrough. It was just that Lin Yi was now at the early stage of mysterious ascension, and the movement of the breakthrough was far beyond their expectations. That seems to be the case, but there's one thing I don't understand. Since he hasn't woken up yet, how could he have broken through? Kai Zhongyang was puzzled. Breaking through was a very important matter for cultivators. No matter how talented they were, they would need to give it their all in order to have a chance of success. As for breaking through in one's sleep in an unconscious state, that was something that had never happened before in the world of cultivation. Was it even possible to wake up and discover that one had broken through? At least in Kai Zhongyang and Ho Guanqi's understanding, this was absolutely impossible. However, Lin Yi's current state was overturning their understanding bit by bit. Yeah, he can't be cultivating even when he's sleeping, right? Ho Guanqi also found it unbelievable. If he's just cultivating while he's sleeping, then it's easier for me to understand. After all, he's Lin Yi, not an ordinary person. It's not strange for him to do something that defies common sense. But now he's projecting his primordial spirit. It's obvious that his primordial spirit isn't here, so how can he control the circulation of his innate qi? Kai Zhongyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. When people were sleeping, their consciousness was still active. For cultivators, it was just that their primordial spirit was still in a normal state. It was just a kind of subconscious self-control. Although it was rare to cultivate under such circumstances, strictly speaking, it was not difficult to imagine. But Lin Yi's primordial spirit wasn't even here, and it was not just simple cultivation, but directly breaking through on the spot. What the hell was this? Just as everyone was talking, the aura on Lin Yi's body had impressively broken through its original limit. Everyone only felt a powerful invisible wave of qi from Lin Yi's body, and they all took a few steps back in unison. Only then did they stagger and stabilize their bodies. Then, there was a moment of incredible silence. Watching as Lin Yi's aura stabilized little by little, and gradually returned to the original undetectable state, Kai Zhongyang and Ho Guanqi were both stunned. After a long time, they looked at each other and said a few words. The peak of the early stage of profound ascension, just now it was just a bold guess, but now it had simply become a living reality. In this world, there was really someone who could break through in a state of unconscious or even without a primordial spirit, and it was at a high level like the profound ascension stage. It was really incredible. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they would never believe it even if they were beaten to death. Tian-chan and the others were also stunned, but compared to the breakthrough, Tian Chan and Sydney were more concerned about Lin Yi's current state, for fear that something unexpected had happened to Lin Yi. Don't worry, his state is the same as before, there's no big problem. Hou Guanqi carefully examined Lin Yi's body, and did not find any abnormalities. All the signs were very stable. Oh, that's good. Tian Chan and the others were relieved. But what is going on with him? How did he break through? Kai Zhongyang was still frowning, puzzled. Come on, this is too bizarre for us, we can't figure it out by ourselves, we can only wait for him to wake up and ask. Hou Guanqi shook his head with a bitter smile. Tian Chan and Sydney looked at each other. In their opinion, it didn't matter what the breakthrough was, as long as there was no problem with Lin Yi's body. Waiting for Lin Yi's primordial spirit to return safely, this was their biggest wish. This time, the storm was more frightening than dangerous, and Tian Chan and the others were shocked, but Lin Yi, who was far away in the ancient trial ground, was unaware of it. What's going on? Lin Yi mumbled to himself. When he tried to break through just now, it was obviously different from before. There seemed to be a sign that he was about to break through, but this subtle feeling didn't last long, it disappeared without a trace, and then he fell into the original bottleneck. No matter how hard he tried, the barrier was still there, unmoving. If it was someone else in this situation, they would definitely be depressed for a while. Did they grab a life-saving straw, only to find out that it was really just a straw? Just thinking about it was depressing, but Lin Yi maintained his mentality. He didn't think too much about it. He looked down at the people who were quietly resting, and coincidentally met Leng Leng's gaze. The two couldn't help but smile at each other. The primeval trials this time was not a small test for everyone, and among them, the one with the most pressure would be Leng Leng. She was the second strongest after Lin Yi, and every time they encountered a spirit beast, she would be the main force. At the same time, she had to take on the responsibility of protecting Ling Shan and the others, and the pressure was not small at all. Chapter 52-33. 1 day's worth of hard work was equivalent to a month's worth of hard work. An opportunity like this wasn't something that one could simply come across. The two looked at each other, understanding each other without words. Leng Leng nodded slightly and went back to recuperating. She had expended quite a lot of energy in the day, and if everything went well, she would have to take on the main responsibility tomorrow. She couldn't afford to slack off. The night passed uneventfully. By the time the sun rose, everyone had basically recovered to their peak condition, and they continued their journey under Lin Yi's lead. The next 2 days, the group's experience could be said to be more daunting than dangerous. Although they did encounter various kinds of spirit beasts along the way, most of them were only at the foundation establishment stage. Lin Yi didn't even need to do anything, as long as Leng Leng and Ling Shan could take care of them. To the group, it had become a true battle training journey. As for the spirit beasts that were as strong as Golden Core practitioners, Lin Yi could basically take care of them with a pure chi pill fire bomb. At the very least, he could scare the opponent away. As long as there weren't more than 2 of them appearing at the same time like before, it wasn't a big problem. Of course, Golden Core spirit beasts usually had their own territory, and each territory could only have one master. Unless they happened to step on the dividing line, the probability of encountering such a situation was not high. However, on the 3rd night, Lin Yi's group welcomed an uninvited guest. Leng Leng and the others were recuperating as usual. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was guarding the tree trunk out of habit. Suddenly, his expression changed. At the furthest end of his divine senses range, there was clearly a flying spirit beast approaching their direction at high speed. Gomang? Lin Yi paused. The silhouette of the flying spirit beast was extremely blurry, but judging from its wings, it was most likely the primordial Gomang that they had met before. Lin Yi's first thought was that the primordial King Gomang had chased up to him, but he quickly rejected that theory. This was because the other party wasn't that big in size. It was a far cry from primordial King Gomang's massive body. At best, it was an ordinary Gomang. There was nothing to be afraid of if it was just an ordinary Gomang. Ignoring Lin Yi, even Cold and company could deal with it calmly after the past few days of combat training. However, Lin Yi's expression was rather heavy. For some reason, Gomang gave him an inexplicable sense of danger. This was a feeling he had never felt when he faced the primordial Gomang King and crimson-scaled snake. Something is coming from the sky. Everyone, be careful. Lin Yi did not dare to neglect and immediately reminded Cold and the others below. Cold and company immediately felt as though they were facing a formidable foe. They knew very well that this thing was no trifling matter. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's habits over the past few days, he wouldn't have been so nervous and cautious. He didn't even warn them and instead let them sense it themselves, using this as a test of their ability to react. For the past few days, Lin Yi wasn't playing the role of a pure guardian, but an instructor. However, it was clearly not the time to test them before figuring out the strength of that thing. Moments later, the thing was only half a kilometer away from them. Although it had an unfathomable aura lingering around it that could fool most people's perception, Lin Yi would have wasted all his years if he couldn't see its true form at this distance. Worm? Lin Yi was taken aback. It clearly had a pair of gigantic Gomang wings, but its body was a white and tender worm. This scene was so bizarre that it left him amused. How could it be a worm? Worm? What worm? Cold and company were baffled. Their perception range was not that far away. Even if it was that far away, they wouldn't be able to see through the unfathomable aura on the other party. Lin Yi didn't answer, but he didn't let his guard down. No matter how funny the other party's appearance was, his increasingly strong sense of danger wouldn't lie. In the cultivation world, people who judged people by their appearance generally didn't live long, and Lin Yi was never one of them. In the blink of an eye, the other party was less than 20 meters away from Lin Yi. It calmly landed on the trunk of a big tree on the opposite side, facing Lin Yi directly. You're Lin Yi? The brain-eating bug sized up Lin Yi with great interest. Lin Yi was slightly surprised when he heard that. He could guess that the other party was coming for his group, but he didn't expect the other party to call out his name. He immediately asked bluntly, "How do you know?" Simple. It's because I ate primordial King Gomang, the brain-eating bug answered frankly. This answer immediately stunned everyone. Cold and company exchanged looks and could not help but suspect if the fellow was bragging. For such a tiny worm to be able to eat the massive primordial King Gomang, what kind of joke was that? Lin Yi fell into thought. He was momentarily unable to imagine how the other party had eaten primordial King Gomang, but his intuition told him that it was an extremely dangerous fellow, far more dangerous than primordial King Gomang. Then, who are you? Lin Yi continued asking. Envoy. In their words, I'm that lord's envoy. The brain-eating bug remained very frank. Envoy? Lin Yi's eyes flashed slightly because he saw the pair of gigantic wings on the other party's back instantly vanish. Now, it looked like a white worm through and through, appearing even more harmless. While Lin Yi was sizing up the brain-eating bug, the brain-eating bug was also sizing him up. As for Cold and the others below, the brain-eating bug was not interested in them at all. It seemed to be only interested in Lin Yi. Are you here to capture the tributes as well? Lin Yi continued probing. This guy's reaction was completely different from all the other spirit beasts he'd met before. All the spirit beasts, including the ancient Gomang King and the red-scaled snake, had only cared about the number of tributes. They weren't interested in a troublesome human like him at all, completely different from this insect envoy. You can say that. The brain-eating bug's answer was non-committal. It was an envoy, unlike primordial King Gomang, who had to provide sufficient human tributes in order to survive. Even if it did nothing, it would not suffer any punishment. However, since they had encountered each other, it did not matter if it was just a little help. All right, I have no more questions. Lin Yi nodded. At the same time when he finished his sentence, Cold and the others understood and moved forward at the same time. This was the secret signal that they had agreed on earlier. Although it was very dangerous to do so at night, and they might encounter other unpredictable dangers ahead if they were not careful, but it was much better than everyone staying here in front of a strong enemy. Chapter 52-34. However, Lin Yi was already prepared for this. Before it could cast the wind blade, Lin Yi's figure flashed and blocked in front of it. Roar! You human really have a lot of guts. The brain-eating insect suddenly laughed. This scene was really funny in the eyes of those who did not know. Hearing this sentence from the mouth of a harmless white insect, even if Lin Yi knew that the other party was not simple, he could not help but feel strange and speechless at this time. As the brain-eating insect's voice fell, 2 wind blades immediately whistled out. The target changed from Cold and the others to Lin Yi, who was close at hand. At such a short distance, there was no chance to dodge. As soon as the wind blades formed, they were directly attached to Lin Yi's body. If this continued, he would immediately be dismembered. Really? I think you have a lot of guts. Lin Yi replied unhurriedly. He did not take any action against the wind blades because it was not necessary. The real chi pill fire bomb condensed in his hand had been pressed on the other party's face in advance. Although it did not delay much time, Lin Yi had habitually maintained the real chi in his body at a higher intensity these days. The time to condense the real chi pill fire bomb was greatly reduced. At this time, the power of the attack was close to the limit of his strength. Boom! The tranquility of the night was shattered by a loud bang. The surrounding area of a few miles was razed to the ground in an instant. Within 100 miles, it was a mess. Many spirit beasts fled in panic. Cold and the others had escaped a certain distance at this moment, and with the previous experience, although everyone was in a sorry state, no one was injured. Phew! Lin Yi let out a long breath. If he detonated the real chi pill fire bomb at such a close distance in the past, he would inevitably suffer a heavy backlash, but now his speed was much faster than before when he was at his peak. Moreover, he could freely switch between the primordial spirit form and the semi-primordial spirit form, which was enough to avoid most of the backlash damage. However, it was different for the brain-eating worm, which bore the brunt of the attack. The pill fire bomb detonated right on its face, and the damage was immeasurable. Even an existence like Primordial Goman King, who was comparable to a late-stage Golden Core expert, would definitely die from such a direct hit to his face. However, Lin Yi quickly frowned once more, and his frown was even tighter than before. Because his divine sense told him that not only did he not lose his life on the spot, he wasn't even heavily injured. Roar roar, as expected of a human who could kill the red-scaled snake. I have to say, you do have some ability. When Brain Eater reappeared, it was already a kilometer away. Apart from some scorch marks on its body, there were no other serious injuries, and it even looked rather relaxed. It said half jokingly and half fearfully, "Luckily, I copied the Goman clan's shadow escape, or I would have really suffered." This time, Lin Yi was truly shocked. The real chi pill fire bomb was his strongest trump card. Apart from that, his other means, including the 5 elemental killing chi, were hardly a threat to an existence at the Golden Core stage. At the end of the day, he was only a primordial spirit. Even if he had mastered the primordial spirit form and the semi-primordial spirit form, which were unique to primordial spirits, they were still far inferior to the heaven-defying qualities of his main body. Lin Yi's heart sank as he looked at the guy's nonchalant face. It would have been easier to accept if the pure chi pill fire bomb hadn't hit the guy, but he'd clearly pressed it against his face and detonated it. Even if the guy had used a skill like Shadow Stripper, he wouldn't have been able to dodge the damage in the first instant. But all it did was scratch the guy's itch. How could he accept that? Let's go. Leng Leng, lead the team and take care of everyone. I'll meet up with you guys after luring it away. Lin Yi hurriedly communicated with Leng Leng and the others. He was not this nervous even when he faced the primordial Goman King and the red-scaled snake at the same time. However, this time, he really had no confidence at all. Luring the opponent away and meeting up with the others was the only way he could think of. This Song Lingshan and the others looked at each other, worried. They never thought that things would become so serious. It was just a bug, how could it be so terrifying? Let's go. Leng Leng was the first to react. She immediately led the others away. She was very clear that the longer they stayed, the more danger Lin Yi would be in. There was no room for delay or hesitation in a matter of life and death. Looking at Leng Leng's back as she led the others away, Lin Yi's lips curled into a gratified smile. What made him even more gratified was that the bug had no intention of chasing after them. Its target was very clear, it was him. You seem to be very concerned about those people? The brain-eating bug wasn't in a hurry to attack. Instead, it asked with interest. Does that matter? Since your target is me, letting them go should be something that doesn't matter to you. Am I right? Although Lin Yi was shocked, he did not show it on his face. He was still calm and at ease. Exactly. The brain-eating bug nodded. Its target from the beginning was not the so-called human tributes. After all, the tributes were prepared for that master. It was here to eat it alone. That's good. Why don't we wait a little longer? Lin Yi said casually. You're very interesting, human. This is what you guys call pushing your luck, right? The brain-eating bug laughed. A bug's face showed all kinds of human-like expressions. This scene was weird no matter how one looked at it. Not really. In my understanding, this is called friendly negotiation, Lin Yi said shamelessly. Friendly negotiation? The brain-eating bug was stunned for a moment before it realized what it meant. It suddenly laughed so hard that its entire body arched. It said breathlessly, well, it seems that I didn't come in the wrong this time. You're indeed a rare human sample. Sample? Lin Yi pretended to be surprised, but he was relieved in his heart. If this guy insisted on making a move to keep Leng Leng and the others, he would not be able to do anything. He had to admit that this bug was actually quite smart. Yes, it's a sample. In your human language, it basically means food, but it's slightly different, the brain-eating bug said bluntly. Chapter 5235. It's your honor. To be able to become my food, you have to be at least a character like the primordial Gomang King. Even if the average person was sent to my mouth, I wouldn't like to eat them. The brain-eating bug said bluntly. This was the truth. Eating brains was its innate ability, but it wasn't just eating. The key was that after eating the brain, it could copy the other party's ability. If it was an average person, it wouldn't benefit much even if it ate them. It would just be a waste of energy. Oh, then don't I have to thank you for your favor? Lin Yi said with a faint smile. You're welcome. The brain-eating bug was frank. After waiting for a moment, it said, it's about time. I'm going to make my move. With that said, without waiting for Lin Yi's reaction, the brain-eating bug's body suddenly grew a lot longer. The wings were still on its back, but its body had become a giant snake. At first glance, it had the charm of a red-scaled snake. Not only that, but its snake body also grew for extremely sharp claws. It was unknown what kind of powerful spirit beast its original form was, but just a glance was enough to make one shudder in fear. What a monster! Lin Yi sighed when he saw this. If this guy's image continued to develop, it would probably become a knockoff version of a dragon. Sighing was one thing, but Lin Yi's actions weren't slow at all. Taking advantage of this moment, he had already condensed a true chi pill fire bomb in his hand. Even though he knew he couldn't kill the other party, he could only do so. After all, it was his most powerful means. Again? You really don't want to give up. This time, the brain-eating bug didn't use the primordial Gomang race's shadow escape to retreat. Instead, it directly clawed at the primordial Gomang race and exploded it on the spot. It was unyielding and domineering. So fierce? Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. He knew his opponent wasn't simple, but he didn't expect it to be this strong. Even if the true chi pill firebomb's power hadn't reached its limit, it definitely couldn't be underestimated. As a result, after the true chi pill firebomb detonated, the brain-eating insect's body had a few more scorched black scars. The injury was more serious than before, but it was still not to the point of hurting the muscles and bones. Instead, it stimulated its fierceness. It immediately roared and rushed over to swallow Lin Yi. Unfortunately, Lin Yi did not give her the chance at all. As early as the moment when the true Qi Dan firebomb detonated, he had already used the aftermath to escape a long distance away. Of course, the direction he chose was completely opposite to Kuld and the others. Otherwise, it would be meaningless to delay for so long. You escaped pretty fast, but it's a pity that you met me. The brain-eating bug looked at Lin Yi, who had become a small black dot in the distance, and smiled. With a flap of its wings, it immediately chased after him. The brain-eater was very fast, but it was much slower than Lin Yi. Even if Lin Yi escaped on the ground and it flew in the sky, it could only hang on. It was not easy to close the distance. This guy's speed isn't slow. Lin Yi looked back at the brain-eating insect in the sky. Although he said so, his expression was relaxed. Not to mention anything else, at least in terms of speed, he had absolute confidence. As long as he wanted to, he could get rid of the opponent in minutes because he was only using the super butterfly subtle steps at the moment. There was still the super extreme butterfly subtle steps that he hadn't used yet. For Lin Yi, it was not a good thing to get rid of the opponent too early because it was likely to transfer the danger to Kuld and the others. Anyway, he had enough confidence to escape. Hanging on to the brain-eating insect like this was the best choice. However, this was not without any risk. With the strength that the brain-eating insect had just shown, Lin Yi was not willing to fight it at close range even if he was beaten to death. If he was not careful, he would either die or be injured. If he attracted some powerful spirit beasts during his escape, the consequences would be hard to predict. While Lin Yi was planning, the brain-eating insect was also planning. It was not stupid. In fact, it had already seen through Lin Yi's intention. It knew that Lin Yi still had some strength left and could speed up to get rid of it at any time, but it still had absolute confidence. As far as it knew, any human practitioner had a limited amount of qi. Running for his life like this would consume a lot of his qi, and by the time he ran out of it, he'd be at the end of his rope, completely at its mercy. Moreover, it had a secret weapon. It was not afraid that Lin Yi would really escape from its palm. No matter how far Lin Yi escaped, it would be useless. It would always be able to grasp the opponent's position. One man and one beast continued like this for the whole night. Seeing that the sky was bright, the brain-eating insect finally felt that something was wrong. It could not help but mutter, "What's wrong with this human? Where did he get so much true energy?" It would never have thought that Lin Yi had a cheating device like the Jade Pendant Space. If it was purely a battle of consumption, he would naturally be in an invincible position. Just like now, Lin Yi was still alive and kicking. On the contrary, the brain-eating insect was a little overwhelmed. No matter how strong it was, it could not withstand a whole night of relentless pursuit. At this moment, Lin Yi's speed suddenly increased a lot. In the blink of an eye, he escaped out of the brain-eating insect's perception range. He's finally starting to use his true energy to escape. It seems that this human's true energy is almost consumed. The brain-eating insect was not surprised. Instead, it smiled proudly. "No matter how fast you run, you won't be able to escape from my traces." Traces was the innate ability of the thousand-eyed wolf spider. Now, it had also become one of the abilities of the brain-eating insect. As long as it left a trace of undetectable spider silk on the other party, then no matter where the other party escaped, it would not be able to escape its pursuit. This spider silk was extremely thin. Not only was it invisible to the naked eye, but it was also difficult to distinguish it with divine sense. Previously, when Lin Yi deliberately delayed talking, the brain-eating insect was so cooperative because it wanted to beat him at his own game and leave a spider silk on Lin Yi. As the brain-eating insect said, it was very picky about its food. Once it targeted someone, it would definitely die. This was because it would use all kinds of methods, and it was impossible to guard against it. To be precise, it was impossible to guard against it at all. Lin Yi really did not notice the spider silk on his body. After all, this thing was too thin and too light. Even with his divine sense, it was difficult to detect it. Unless he had taken precautions and carried out a comprehensive and specialized inspection, even an immortal would fall for it. With such a brilliant tracking method, the brain-eating insect was naturally sitting on a fishing platform. No matter how fast and far Lin Yi escaped, in front of its traces, it would be a futile struggle. Chapter 52-36. However, at this moment, there was a sudden change. Lin Yi's trace suddenly disappeared from its mind without any warning. The brain-eating bug was stunned for a long time and could not say a word for a long time. It was still complacent that everything was under control. Wasn't this a slap in the face? After a long time, the brain-eating bug finally became angry. This cunning human. Could it be that he had discovered my tracks from the very beginning and had been acting in order to numb my senses? Damn bastard. Little did it know that Lin Yi did not know any traces at all. He just wanted to ensure that he could completely shake off the other party, so he completely transformed from the primordial spirit form to the primordial spirit form. No matter how clever the traces were, they still needed to be attached to a physical body to be effective. When Lin Yi transformed into the primordial spirit form, the spider silk had no place to attach, so it naturally lost its meaning. This was purely a coincidence. Fortunately, Lin Yi did not stop practicing for the past few months and mastered the switching between the primordial spirit form, the semi-primordial spirit form, and the primordial spirit form. Otherwise, he would have suffered a big loss unknowingly. After carefully confirming several times that the brain-eating bug did not catch up, Lin Yi finally returned to the primordial spirit form and returned to the ground. Although it was not impossible to maintain the primordial spirit form, after all, this state could be immune to most of the damage. However, once there was a special emergency, this state was also very fragile and could be said to have no defense. In this ancient trial ground with all kinds of dangers, the primordial spirit form was no different from a small boat drifting in the sea. Any huge wave could be a disaster. In contrast, the primordial spirit form was more likely to be injured, but at least he could use all kinds of trump cards. More importantly, Lin Yi was more used to this form that was close to his original body. Otherwise, he would always feel weird if he kept transforming into a primordial spirit and floating in the sky. After returning to the ground, the first thing Lin Yi did was to find Cold and the rest. After all, they were still too weak. It would be fine if they were only facing a Foundation Establishment stage threat, but if they encountered a Golden Core stage spirit beast, the consequences were simply unimaginable. If this dragged on, Lin Yi really could not rest assured. However, it was not easy to find Cold and the rest at this time. They had escaped for the whole night with the Super Butterfly Microstep. Even if they were not completely in the opposite direction, the distance was definitely not a little bit. It was at least hundreds of miles away. In this vast ancient trial ground, it was easier said than done to find someone from such a far distance. It would be better if they were in a plain area with a clear view. At worst, they could just change into their primordial spirit form and float around in the sky. It would not be that difficult to find traces of Cold and the others. However, there were primeval forests everywhere. They could not even see the situation under their feet when they were floating in the air, let alone looking into the distance. Especially since this place was similar to the previous trial ground, the divine sense could not be expanded too far. The only way Lin Yi could use now was to determine the route of Cold and the rest, then rush to the front of the crowd at the fastest speed. At the same time, he maintained the largest range of divine sense perception to avoid any mistakes. This way, he would have a chance to meet with the rest in a short period of time. Lin Yi's speed was extremely fast. Even if he encountered a spirit beast along the way, there was no delay. After all, even the brain-eating worm could not catch up with his speed, let alone these ordinary spirit beasts. They wanted to block the way, but unfortunately, Lin Yi did not care about them at all. He directly rushed past them. They could only look at him in the dust. What could they do? After an hour, Lin Yi suddenly stopped. It was not a problem with his vital energy or physical strength, but because there were traces of humans in his divine sense perception. This position was unlikely to be cold and the rest, but Lin Yi still wanted to find out the specific situation. He did not mind helping the disciples of the Archaic Alliance along the way. He might even meet some familiar faces. Huh? Lin Yi frowned slightly. This place was not on the periphery of any main road. It was already deep in the jungle. He could vaguely find a series of footprints of human cultivators on the ground. However, this series of footprints stopped abruptly after reaching an open space. Lin Yi took a look at the surrounding environment. At first glance, it looked ordinary. There was nothing special, and there was no dangerous aura. There was even no trace of the activities of spirit beasts, which were very common in other places. The environment revealed a fresh and pleasant smell. It was completely a place like a paradise. More importantly, there were no human cultivators in the range of Lin Yi's divine sense perception. In other words, a person disappeared into thin air after coming here. Logically, unless this person could fly, otherwise, no matter how strong he was, he would inevitably leave some traces. It was the same even if he climbed up the tree. The scene in front of him was a little inexplicable. He could not say that he could transform into the form of the primordial spirit like Lin Yi, right? Lin Yi could not figure out the reason at the moment, but he was sure that there must be something wrong with this environment. It was just that he did not know where the problem was. After continuing to observe for a while, he still did not find any abnormalities or flaws. Lin Yi decided not to waste any more time. The reason why he stopped was just a whim to see if he would encounter any familiar faces. For him, meeting with Cold and the rest was the top priority. It was meaningless to continue to stay here. However, at the moment when he was ready to move, there was suddenly a slight movement behind him. Lin Yi did not look back, but his divine sense perception had already told him what happened. It was the sound of flowers blooming. Less than 3 steps behind him, a vermilion flower bud bloomed quietly at a place half the height of a person. It was bright, beautiful, and had a refreshing and elegant fragrance. Danger. Lin Yi immediately noticed the additional trace of inexplicable danger in the environment. It was obvious that the danger came from this beautiful flower that seemed harmless. As expected, the flower suddenly opened up in an instant. There were rows of ferocious sawteeth growing in the petals. The entire flower turned into a giant mouth that chose a person to swallow. Its momentum was as fast as lightning. It was about to swallow Lin Yi in one gulp. Chapter 52-37. The man-eating flowers bite missed, but the crisis was not over. Just as Lin Yi dodged it, another man-eating flower appeared less than 3 steps away from him. It was identical in size and shape. This time, Lin Yi could not dodge in time. He felt his vision darken and a thought flashed through his mind: flower blooms on the same stalk. Vermilion redbud. Vermilion redbud was the name of a flower. From the appearance of these 2 man-eating flowers, they were indeed the vermilion redbud that was commonly seen in the secular world. However, the vermilion redbud in the secular world was not as ferocious and terrifying as the man-eating flowers. Instead, it was purely an ornamental flower. If Lin Yi had realized that it was a vermilion redbud, he would not have fallen for it so easily. This was because the vermilion redbud had a more official name, the twin flower. As the saying goes, when a flower blooms on a single stalk, the twin stalk flower would always grow in opposite directions and would never exist alone. Since this man-eating flower had the same characteristics as the twin stalk flower, it was only natural that it would grow in opposite directions. When he saw one, he had to be prepared to defend against 2. Unfortunately, Lin Yi realized this a little too late. Just as he was about to be bitten by the Bingbi flower, Lin Yi suddenly had a flash of inspiration. and he immediately gave up on the idea of turning into his soul form and running for his life. Instead, he jumped right into the creature's mouth. He wanted to see just what kind of existence this Bingdi flower was. Those sharp teeth did not harm a single hair on Lin Yi's body. In the pitch-black darkness, he felt as if he had entered a tunnel and was quickly transported to the depths of the ground. After a while, his surroundings suddenly became clear. There was even some light. Even without using his divine sense, he could clearly see his surroundings. At first glance, it looked like a tree hole with a diameter of less than 10 meters. However, it was not an ordinary tree hole. Instead, it was an extremely active tree hole. There were countless green tentacles extending from the walls of the hole. Any one of them could entangle a person and cause them to be unable to move. There were 4 tentacles wrapped around Lin Yi's body, and not only were these green tentacles tight, but there were also sharp needles on their tips that made his scalp numb. Surprisingly, a drop of dark green liquid was coming out of the tip. It seemed that it was going to be injected into Lin Yi's body. This time, Lin Yi did not dare to let his guard down. It was fine if it was only a little strangulation, but if this unknown dangerous juice was injected into his body, who knew what the consequences would be? There was no need to struggle or waste any energy. Lin Yi's method of breaking free from the 4 green tentacles was very simple. He transformed into his primordial spirit, and they all instantly fell to nothing. After realizing that he had missed his target. Not only these 4 green tentacles, but all the other tentacles in the tree hole also went crazy, frantically searching for traces of Lin Yi. Unfortunately, Lin Yi was now a ball of primordial spirit, so no matter how hard they tried, it was all in vain. These tentacles did not go crazy for too long. After confirming that Lin Yi was not in the cave, they quickly calmed down, even though Lin Yi appeared in the form of a nascent soul again. They didn't react at all, completely treating Lin Yi as air. Lin Yi was not surprised by this. By now, he had basically understood. Although this Bingdi man-eating flower had the tendency to become a plant spirit, it was still a far cry from the real spirit that he had seen in the past. For example, the half-moon lake at the back mountain of the North Island in Heaven Step. Not only was there a huge difference in level, but even the degree of evolution was the same. The half-moon lake had a completely independent individual consciousness. Furthermore, there were other advanced techniques that were similar to divine sense. However, this Bingdi man-eating flower didn't have any. It seemed to be acting on its own instincts. After avoiding its instinctive ability to distinguish between friend and foe, it was completely blind. However, what made Lin Yi puzzled was why an existence like this, whose evolution was far from complete, would deliberately leave him alive just now. Could it be that it was the same as the other spirit beasts and needed to be left alive to offer tribute to that lord? Logically speaking, the biggest instinct of the Bingdi man-eating flower was to hunt. When a prey like Lin Yi fell into its mouth, it would definitely bite him into pieces. This way, it would be easier to digest and absorb him. However, when Lin Yi fell into its mouth just now, those dangerous and ferocious teeth surprisingly chose to restrain themselves and send him into the cave unscathed. If that wasn't the case, Lin Yi wouldn't have suddenly changed his mind and walked into the trap. He just wanted to see what kind of background this Bingdi man-eating flower had. Lin Yi looked around. At this moment, he suddenly heard a faint shout from below. At first, it sounded rather familiar. When the voice was heard again, Lin Yi immediately reacted. Fei Yangsheng. It turned out that the series of footprints he saw previously belonged to Fei Yangsheng. This guy was really unlucky to actually fall into the mouth of the Bingdi man-eating flower. To Lin Yi, although Fei Yangsheng wasn't really one of his people, he was more or less related to him. Since he had encountered Fei Yangsheng, he naturally wouldn't leave him in the lurch. He immediately transformed into his primordial spirit and went down. As expected, there was also a sealed tree hole below and Fei Yangsheng was tied up in the middle by a bunch of green tentacles. Seeing this, Lin Yi smiled. He immediately condensed his primordial spirit and appeared in front of him. Fei Yangsheng only felt his vision blur. At first, he didn't dare to believe it. However, he immediately reacted and instantly exclaimed, "Senior Lin, you were also trapped?" "Hee hee, you can say that." Lin Yi smiled noncommittally. "That's not right. Why aren't you tied up by these things?" Fei Yangsheng looked at Lin Yi's relaxed expression in disbelief. From the looks of it, Lin Yi wasn't trapped at all. He was obviously here for sightseeing. "Oh, because they are reasonable." Lin Yi casually made up a story. I'm already in this situation." "Senior Lin, please don't tease me." Fei Yangsheng smiled bitterly. "I'm not teasing you. Can't you see that they are ignoring me?" Lin Yi curled his lips and then asked, "By the way, how did you get caught here? This place isn't on the main road at all. With your strength, how did you get the courage to wander in the dense forest alone?" Fei Yangsheng's strength was only at the peak of the middle stage of the foundation building realm. Even among the experts of the same level, he was far from outstanding. It was thanks to Lin Yi that he was able to obtain the qualification to participate in the primordial trial this time. If he wandered into the dense forest alone with his strength, he would definitely die without a burial place in minutes. Chapter 52-38. Escape. Lin Yi was slightly taken aback. "Yes, we encountered a giant one-eyed bear along the way. Its strength was at least in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. That guy was extremely ferocious. Even Duanmu Yu was sent flying by its slap, not to mention the rest of us. Most of us were captured alive by it. Thanks to my quick reflexes, I escaped into the dense forest and barely escaped. In the end, before I could rejoice, I became like this," Fei Yangsheng said dejectedly. "You mean Duanmu Yu is dead?" Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. He had a rather deep impression of Duanmu Yu, and his impression of her was not bad. It would be quite a pity if she died just like that. That shouldn't be the case. After she was sent flying by the giant one-eyed bear, she didn't appear again. In my opinion, she was definitely injured, but not to the point of death. After all, she was one of the strongest cultivators in the Foundation establishment realm. Fei Yangsheng shook his head. "That's not too bad," Lin Yi nodded. "Sigh, if I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have been blinded by greed and chose to follow Duanmu Yu. It would have been much better if I had followed Senior Lin. At the very least, I wouldn't have ended up like this." Fei Yangsheng sighed with a look of regret. "Hee hee, you think too much." Lin Yi laughed and shook his head. "You only encountered a giant one-eyed bear in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. I encountered the primordial Goman King and the red-scaled snake, both of which were powerful spirit beasts in the late stage of the Golden Core realm. After that, I encountered countless spirit beasts of all sizes, and I even encountered an unfathomable brain-eating worm. According to my speculation, it was at least an invincible existence in the Golden Core realm. Do you think you would have a good ending by following me? So ferocious?" Fei Yangsheng was dumbfounded. Compared to what Lin Yi said, the giant one-eyed bear was simply an obedient baby. Fei Yangsheng was nothing. "Otherwise, why would you see me here?" Lin Yi asked with his lips curled. "Oh, that's true." Fei Yangsheng smiled sheepishly. Now that even Lin Yi had fallen to such a state, there was no need to mention the others who followed him. Fortunately, he had chosen Duanmu Yu's path. In comparison, the difficulty was relatively easy. Otherwise, if he really followed Lin Yi, it would be a complete nightmare. As the two of them spoke, the surrounding green tentacles bound Fei Yangsheng tighter and tighter. One of the tentacles was especially thick, and its sharp needle, dripping with dark green liquid, was about to stab into Fei Yangsheng's body. Fei Yangsheng was so scared that he almost wet his pants. He quickly shouted, "Senior Lin, save me." Before he finished speaking, Lin Yi had already made his move. A beam of 5 elements murderous chi with a low dragon roar met the tentacle head-on. The tentacle immediately broke without any suspense, and Fei Yangsheng finally escaped death. However, before he could breathe a sigh of relief, the numerous green tentacles around him all went crazy. As if they had poked a hornet's nest, all the tentacles began to attack wildly. What made Fei Yangxing want to cry was that these tentacles only targeted him from the beginning to the end. Lin Yi, who was standing in front of him, was not affected at all. It was as if he was treated as air. The Bingdi man-eating flower could not sense the existence of Lin Yi at all. What's going on? Fei Yangxing was on the verge of tears. With his meager strength, how could he withstand the crazy attacks of so many tentacles? Moreover, he was tied up tightly at the moment. He didn't even have the chance to dodge, let alone counterattack. Of course, Lin Yi would not leave Fei Yangxing to die. He immediately attacked with several beams of 5 elements murderous qi and cut off the green tentacles that bound Fei Yangxing. Although this could not completely solve Fei Yangxing's predicament, at least it gave him a chance to struggle and save himself. Fei Yangxing was like a drowning man grasping at the last life-saving straw. He couldn't care less about the residual injuries in his body and hurriedly began to dodge with all his strength. He wanted to avoid being hit as much as he could. As for counterattacking, it was simply a fantasy to him, and he didn't even need to think about it. A person's potential was limitless. The strength that Fei Yangxing displayed at this moment was far beyond his realm. Unfortunately, even so, he could only struggle for a little longer. If this continued, he would still die of exhaustion. Senior Lin, save me. Fei Yangxing could only beg for help with a bitter face. He had no choice. He had to beg for help, or he would die. However, this time, Lin Yi did not pay attention to him. Instead, he stood at the side thoughtfully and watched the show. This time, Fei Yangxing really cried. He was busy dodging, otherwise, he would really kneel in front of Lin Yi. In a short period of time, Fei Yangxing had already suffered 4 or 5 hits. Although he was lucky to avoid being hit in the vital parts every time, his skin and flesh were still torn, and he was seriously injured. If these hits continued, he would really be dead. Fortunately, Lin Yi did not give up on him completely. Just when Fei Yangxing was about to collapse, Lin Yi suddenly used the frenzied fire fist. A terrifying heat immediately surged. Seeing this, Fei Yangxing's eyes lit up. Although he did not know how the Bingdi man-eating flower became a spirit, he was sure that fire was definitely the natural enemy of plants. However, Fei Yangxing found that Lin Yi's frenzied fire fist was directly aimed at his face. He was so frightened that he hurriedly shouted, "Wrong! Wrong! Senior Lin, don't hit me!" Lin Yi did not pay attention to him. The frenzied fire fist directly landed on Fei Yangxing's body. As for the green tentacles that were attacking him crazily, they retreated to the side. It seemed that they were really afraid of fire. After a while, Fei Yangxing finally recovered. He spat out a mouthful of black smoke. His whole body was charred black, and he staggered to his feet. As soon as he saw Lin Yi, he hurriedly hid, afraid that Lin Yi would punch him again. The Bingdi man-eating flower did not kill him. Instead, he died in the hands of Lin Yi. How wronged! Why are you hiding? Lin Yi looked at him with amusement. Ah. Fei Yangxing did not react immediately. He was about to kneel down and beg for mercy. In his current state, if Lin Yi wanted to kill him, it would be a piece of cake. He did not even need to move his finger. Lin Yi just had to stand by and watch, and Fei Yangxing would be dead for sure. Don't you understand? Look around you. Lin Yi advised. Fei Yangxing was confused. When he heard this, he subconsciously looked behind him and was suddenly stunned. This was because he realized that the green tentacles that were attacking him crazily just now were not moving at all. They did not have any intention of attacking him. Chapter 52-39. It's simple. I cracked its prey recognition mechanism. Lin Yi smiled. Prey identification mechanism? Fei Yangxing didn't quite understand. That's right. I discovered it just now. Do you know why the tentacles only attacked you and not me when we are both here? Lin Yi asked. Isn't it because they are reasonable? Fei Yangxing said weakly. You really believe it? Lin Yi looked at him as if he was looking at a rare animal. Fei Yangxing was speechless. He didn't believe such nonsense at first, but he couldn't think of any other explanation. There is only one real reason. You are stained with the unique juice of the Bingdi man-eating flower, but I don't have it on me. Lin Yi revealed the answer. The juice of the Bingdi man-eating flower? Fei Yangxing was stunned for a moment before he realized that his body was indeed sticky. He must have been stained from the beginning. However, he was in a dangerous situation that he had never been in before since he was swallowed. He was worried about his own life, so how could he be in the mood to pay attention to such trivial things? That's right. This juice is how it identifies its prey. As long as you are stained with the juice, you are its prey. It will use all means to deal with you. However, if you are not stained with the juice, you are like air to it. It will turn a blind eye to you, just like how it treated me just now. Lin Yi explained. He didn't understand this problem at first. It was only after he compared the difference between himself and Fei Yangxing that he realized that he had gotten rid of all the foreign objects attached to him after he transformed into his primordial spirit form. Of course, Fei Yangxing couldn't use this method, so he could only rely on the scorching flames of the frenzy fist to dry himself. Fei Yangxing took a long time to understand. He looked at his charred body and shook his head with a bitter smile. You didn't have to use this method, did you? I was almost scared to death, this was the truth. Even if he wasn't scared to death, he was scared to the point of peeing his pants. He was just dried by the frenzied fire fist. Hee hee, how else could I get you out of danger? Lin Yi smiled. That's true. Thank you for saving my life, Senior Lin. Fei Yangxing hurriedly expressed his gratitude. Although he was in a sorry state, it was better than losing his life. You're welcome. It was nothing. Lin Yi waved his hand indifferently. No matter what, Fei Yangxing had done some things for him in the past. Even if he had not made any contributions, he had worked hard. It would be unreasonable for him not to help in this situation. Fei Yangxing took a long time to recover. His injuries were not light to begin with, and he had no choice but to endure the frenzied fist. Even if it was not at its full power, a layer of his skin had been burned off. This suffering was not easy to endure. Senior Lin, how are we going to get out? Fei Yangxing asked anxiously. Even though the Bingdi man-eating flower no longer treated him as prey and the green tentacles around him were no longer threatening him, it was still not a good idea to be trapped in this place forever. In the end, he still had to think of a way to get out. It's very convenient for me to get out, but it's a little troublesome for you. Lin Yi looked at him and said. If it was Lin Yi himself, he would only need to transform into his primordial spirit form and he would be able to get out unimpeded. But now that there was an additional Fei Yangxing, he could not just leave him here. How troublesome. Senior, if you need anything, just tell me. I promise I won't hesitate even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a pot of boiling oil. Fei Yangxing hurriedly patted his chest and said. He was afraid that Lin Yi would leave him this burden. There's nothing to tell you. All right, you can hide in the corner, lest I accidentally injure you. As Lin Yi spoke, a true chi pill fire bomb suddenly appeared in his hand. After Fei Yangxing had rolled and crawled to the furthest corner, Lin Yi immediately pressed it under his feet. In his opinion, since this tree hole was a part of the Bingdi man-eating flower, even if he could not directly blow up a hole, he would still be able to find another way. Boom! The power of the pure chi pill fire bomb wasn't at its limit, but it was more than enough to blow up a place like this. The result was out of Lin Yi's expectations. The tree hole was destroyed, but there wasn't the exit he'd expected. It was pitch black everywhere, and the only thing visible was a bottomless hole at the bottom. Senior Lin, where is this? Fei Yangxing hurriedly asked. I don't know either. Lin Yi shook his head. He had already used his divine sense to explore a radius of several miles. The result was only one discovery. This was a very deep underground. Even Lin Yi could not figure out where this place was. Fei Yangsheng was even more confused. He could only continue to ask anxiously, "What should we do?" There are two ways. The conservative one is to dig a hole while climbing up. Sooner or later, we will be able to return to the surface. Lin Yi casually said. This was an out-and-out stupid method, but it would not be wrong. At most, it would take a little more time and energy. Why not be conservative? Fei Yangsheng asked. Do you see the hole below? Let's go down and explore. Lin Yi said. Let's not do this. This hole makes me feel scared. Senior Lin, why don't we go up and dig a hole to get out? Fei Yangsheng suggested. I am a little curious about this deep hole. Since you want to dig a hole to get out, then let's say goodbye. Lin Yi said. He pretended to jump into the hole. Although the immediate priority was to meet with Lang Lang and others, Lin Yi always felt that there was a mysterious and unfathomable strange aura below. He would not feel at ease if he did not explore it. Don't. I will go too. Senior, wherever you go, I will go. Fei Yangsheng hurriedly said. He did not dare to act alone even if he was beaten to death. It was rare to meet such a thick thigh like Lin Yi. If he did not know to cling to it, then he would be a fool. Maybe there is some great danger hidden below. Just think about it. Lin Yi smiled noncommittally. He immediately jumped into the hole without saying anything. Fei Yangsheng hesitated for a moment, but then he gritted his teeth and jumped down. If I die, I die. The two fell down in the darkness. Fortunately, the hole was not wide. As long as they stretched their arms and legs slightly, they could touch the wall of the hole. In this way, they could control the speed of their fall and avoid the impact, and they landed too fast. After a while, Lin Yi suddenly reminded, it seems to be the bottom. Be careful. Chapter 5240. Soon, Lin Yi calmly landed on the ground with Fei Yangsheng following closely behind. Both of them were stunned by the scene in front of them. There was actually such a garden so deep underground. This was not only unimaginable, it had completely subverted Lin Yi's view of the world. Didn't all these beautiful flowers need sunlight? Senior, we seem to have discovered an extraordinary place. Fei Yangsheng suddenly became excited. His focus was completely different from Lin Yi's. He discovered that there were many extremely precious spiritual herbs among the surrounding flowers. Any one of them would be invaluable in the market of the primordial underworld. Indeed. Lin Yi nodded slightly. These spiritual herbs were nothing to him. After all, his spiritual herb reserve was started on the Heaven Stage Island. Many of the spiritual herbs he collected were rare even on the Heaven Stage Island. Even so, it was undeniable that this place was not simple. After a few days of exploration, Lin Yi had a general understanding of the ancient training grounds. Although the density of the qi wasn't too bad, it might be because of the dense distribution of spirit beasts, so it was hard to find many elixirs outside. Rare elixirs were even rarer. Rare elixirs like the one in front of him right now was probably the only shop in the entire ancient training grounds that had such rare elixirs. There was no other shop in the entire ancient training grounds that had such rare elixirs. However, why was there such a magical place underground? Ignoring his own injuries, Fei Yangming hastily began to frantically pick all kinds of rare spirit herbs in the surroundings. He didn't care about the others. To him, spirit herbs represented a large amount of spirit jades. Nothing in the world was more important than spirit jades. Wait! Lin Yi suddenly stopped him. What's wrong? Fei Yangsheng's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He thought that Lin Yi wanted to fight with him for these rare spiritual herbs. He quickly said with a bitter face, Senior, there are so many rare spiritual herbs here. It's impossible for the two of us to pick them all. Even if you eat them all, you won't be able to take them away. Why don't you let me have a share? Eating alone? Lin Yi smiled when he heard that. He pointed at the thing in his hand and said, "Take a good look at what you've picked first. Isn't this the legendary scarlet flame fruit? It's worth quite a lot of money in the ancient martial world. It's worth at least 10 pieces of spiritual jade." Fei Yangsheng said happily. Given the rarity of spiritual jades in the primordial underworld, 10 spiritual jades were already a huge sum of money. Open your eyes wide and look carefully. Are you sure this is a scarlet flame fruit? Lin Yi rolled his eyes at him. Fei Yangsheng carefully observed it again. Only then did he realize that although the fruit in his hand looked exactly the same as the scarlet flame fruit at first glance, it had an additional fine grain that wasn't obvious. He couldn't help but be stunned. Could it be a variant of the scarlet flame fruit? A variant? Lin Yi shook his head and laughed. He walked over, snatched the fruit, and threw it away. Fei Yangsheng panicked. Even if it wasn't a scarlet flame fruit, he couldn't just throw it away like that. In the end, before he could even complain, he heard a loud explosion from the fruit, and the surrounding area was instantly razed to the ground. Fei Yangsheng was instantly dumbfounded. He only came back to his senses after a while and stammered, "How? How did this happen? Remember, this is an explosive flame fruit. It will explode when it's fully ripe. If you let it explode even if you bump it a little, its power is more than enough to deal with a peak foundation building middle-stage cultivator like you." Lin Yi pursed his lips. I didn't know that this thing is so dangerous. Senior, you saved my life again." Fei Yangsheng quickly apologized with an embarrassed smile. He said fawningly, "Senior, you're really knowledgeable. Luckily, I followed you here. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know how I died if I were as blind as you. Be careful. Otherwise, no matter how good the spiritual medicine is, you won't be able to take it even if you pick it." Lin Yi reminded him, but he secretly kept an eye on him. This place was really strange. Unlike the well-known scarlet flame fruit, the exploding flame fruit was an extremely unpopular and rare elixir. Due to its extremely unstable nature, it was very difficult for it to grow naturally. It was already not bad to see one or two. However, with a glance, there were at least 18 exploding flame fruits in the surrounding mysterious garden. For the exploding flame fruit, this density had far exceeded the range of natural growth. There was only one possibility. These explosive flame fruits were planted by humans. But why would there be humans here? This was the thing that Lin Yi was most curious about. Therefore, he did not hesitate to detonate the explosive flame fruit. He wanted to alert the enemy. In the end, there was no reaction at all. Fei Yangsheng was still collecting the spiritual medicine in high spirits. However, his movements were much more careful than before. He checked every spiritual medicine carefully again and again before he dared to pick it. He was afraid that he would encounter a dangerous spiritual medicine like the explosive flame fruit again. It would be too unjust to die to such a thing. Lin Yi did not stay idle either. Occasionally, he would find rare spiritual medicines like the explosive flame fruit. He would also put them into the space in the jade pendant. However, he was more concerned about the secret of this mysterious garden. This place wasn't too big, but it wasn't too small either. It was at least 10 miles in circumference, and Lin Yi was sure that he'd be able to find some clues as to what was going on. What was the connection between this place and the twin piranha flower? Not long after, Fei Yangsheng's bag of various spiritual medicines was filled to the brim. He would not be able to take any more. He could only look at the spiritual medicines on the ground with a pained expression and sigh, "There are so many rare spiritual medicines but I can't pick them. What a pity. If this wasn't a primeval smelting ground that only appeared once in 1,000 years, he would absolutely gather all the spirit herbs that could be gathered before him, not leaving a single one behind. After all, those were a large amount of spirit jades. I advise you to stop before you go too far. Are you sure you can take such a big bag of spiritual medicines? Lin Yi looked at him doubtfully. Chapter 52-41. I'll take it with me even if I have to die. Fei Yangsheng looked determined. His heart was bleeding from the pain. If he couldn't even bring a bag of elixirs back, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Suit yourself. Lin Yi didn't bother to persuade Fei Yangsheng anymore. If it was Cold and the others, he wouldn't have said anything and kept them in the jade pendant space. He could just refine them into elixirs and distribute them later. Unfortunately, Fei Yangsheng was doing his best to remind Fei Yangsheng. After all, Fei Yangsheng was far from being one of them. Fei Yangsheng couldn't help but feel nervous when he saw Lin Yi's expression. He asked cautiously, "Senior, you won't leave me here, right? What do you think?" Lin Yi looked at him with a faint smile. Strictly speaking, saving his life just now was very kind considering their relationship. If Fei Yangsheng really became a burden, any normal person wouldn't protect him anymore. Lin Yi was no exception. Ugh. Fei Yangsheng looked at the bag of elixirs, troubled. Naturally, he knew that Lin Yi wouldn't leave him to fend for himself, but he wouldn't waste too much energy on him either. He wouldn't take any risks for him, and he'd have to make sure he had the ability to escape if anything happened, or he'd die. However, he couldn't throw away so many rare elixirs, could he? Fei Yangsheng struggled for a long time. Finally, he gritted his teeth and poured out the whole bag of rare elixirs. This guy has some courage. Lin Yi looked at him in a new light. At Fei Yangsheng's level, pouring out such a big bag of rare elixirs was no different than an ordinary person in the secular world giving up a big prize of hundreds of millions. It required a lot of courage and awareness, which was quite rare. Before Lin Yi could even praise him, Fei Yangsheng took out a small pouch from his pocket and picked out the most valuable herbs. He didn't give up on the rest of the herbs, either, putting them back in the big pouch he'd brought with him. Lin Yi was speechless. He had already seen through this guy's plan. There was a saying that people would die for wealth, and birds would die for food. It was indeed true. "Senior, do you mind?" Fei Yangsheng smiled apologetically. His plan was very simple. If there was no particularly dangerous accident, he would carry all of them back. If the situation was critical, he would abandon the big bags and keep the small ones. No matter what, he could not return empty-handed from the treasure mountain, so he might as well let him die. "I don't mind. Of course, you can make your own decisions. Besides, you are so quick-witted," Lin Yi said with a hint of playfulness. "Senior, you must be joking." Fei Yangsheng blushed. However, since Lin Yi didn't object, he wouldn't give up on his own. After all, it was a lot of spiritual jades. The two of them continued forward, and not long after, a river appeared in front of them. The river was 7 to 8 meters wide, and at first glance, it looked calm. The river water flowed slowly and was so clear that the bottom could be seen, and it emitted an indescribable refreshing aura that refreshed one's spirit. River of divine knowledge? Fei Yangsheng was overjoyed when he saw this. The most important thing in the entire primordial trial land was the river of divine knowledge. It was also the biggest reason he came to participate in the primordial trial. At this time, when he suddenly saw such a mysterious river, he subconsciously thought it was the river of divine knowledge. However, Lin Yi shook his head. Although the river in front of him was indeed not an ordinary river, it was too far-fetched to say that it was the legendary river of divine knowledge. After all, whether it was the geographical location or various related descriptions, the river of divine knowledge was far from the one in front of him. There was actually such a clear river in such an unfathomable place. It looked exactly the same as a river on the surface. No matter how he thought about it, it was very strange, right? Fei Yangsheng couldn't care less. He hurriedly rushed forward and carefully put the 2 bags of elixirs aside. Then, he reached out to drink the river water. The river water of the river of divine knowledge could greatly enhance one's divine knowledge. This was a common saying in almost all the legendary versions of the river of divine knowledge. The most direct way to use it was to drink it into one's stomach. If it was cold or the others, Lin Yi would definitely stop them. No matter what, they had to figure out the details of this river first. However, since it was Fei Yangsheng, there was nothing he could say. Anyway, they weren't particularly familiar with each other. Since Fei Yangsheng was in high spirits, there was no need to disturb him. Moreover, it shouldn't be too dangerous to just drink some water. As a result, just as Fei Yangsheng's hand reached into the water, before he could even scoop up the water, a hand covered with fine scales suddenly stretched out from the clear river water and grabbed him first. With a howl, Fei Yangsheng was dragged down on the spot. He couldn't even struggle. This scene not only scared Fei Yangsheng out of his wits, but even Lin Yi was taken aback. Because his divine knowledge was always sensing the surroundings, from the beginning to the end, he didn't notice that there was such a monster hiding in the river water. Even a powerful existence like the brain-eating insect had never been able to hide from Lin Yi's divine knowledge. After all, he had the spirit of the mysterious ascending stage. The river in front of him was only 10 steps away from Lin Yi. Such a monster was right under his nose and he didn't notice it at all. Just thinking about this made Lin Yi break out in cold sweat. Fortunately, it was Fei Yangsheng. Otherwise, if something happened to any of Cold and the others, Lin Yi would definitely blame himself to death. After Fei Yangsheng was dragged down, in just a blink of an eye, the river surface returned to its previous calmness. There was no clue to be seen with the naked eye. It was still so clear that the bottom could be seen. The monster just now could not be found, and there was no trace of Fei Yangsheng either. It gave people the feeling that nothing had happened. You do have some skills, but is it appropriate to play tricks in front of me? Lin Yi's eyes narrowed into slits, and he slowly walked toward the river. This river gave him a strange feeling from the beginning, and now he understood the source of the strangeness. It was the monster just now. Soon, Lin Yi stopped at the place where Fei Yangsheng had an accident just now. He looked quietly at the bottom of the river. Although he still couldn't see anything strange, his divine knowledge had already sensed some clues. The monster might be able to hide its traces perfectly, but it just dragged Fei Yangsheng down with it. It was ridiculously difficult to hide Fei Yangsheng in front of Lin Yi. Chapter 52-42. He didn't know what kind of ability the monster had, and he didn't know how strong it was. Of course, he couldn't act rashly at this time. As for Fei Yangsheng, he could only let him suffer a little more. If he was lucky, Lin Yi might be able to save his life, but if the monster didn't show up, then he could only blame himself for being unlucky. After all, he couldn't let Lin Yi risk his life again and again to save an outsider like him, right? Fortunately, the heavens were on his side this time. The monster couldn't help but make another move when it saw that Lin Yi wasn't moving at all. A hand covered in scales shot out of the water abruptly, and the situation was exactly the same as before. This time, its target was Lin Yi's ankle. Its intention was obvious. It wanted to drag Lin Yi into the river just like it did to Fei Yangsheng. As long as he was in the water, it would be its world. Its movement was fast. Not only did it come out of the water abruptly, but it also didn't cause any ripples after it came out of the water. Its speed was also amazing. Even if an ordinary person wanted to guard against it, they wouldn't have the strength to do so. Unfortunately, its opponent was Lin Yi. Lin Yi had at least 10 ways to deal with its sneak attack, and this time, to ensure that nothing went wrong, he used the most unsolvable method. The hand had clearly grabbed Lin Yi's ankle, but the next moment, it suddenly grabbed nothing. Then, Lin Yi appeared next to it, raised his hand, and a blue electric arc appeared. Taking advantage of the electric shock, he pulled the monster out of the water. He didn't know that he hadn't seen it, but he was shocked when he saw the monster's strange appearance. At first glance, he looked like a 4 or 5-year-old child, but his entire body was covered in dense black scales, and there was a medium-sized turtle shell on his back. There was a pit on the top of his head, and there was a lot of water in the pit. Anyone would be shocked by such an appearance. Kappa? This thought suddenly flashed in Lin Yi's mind. The image in front of him was exactly the same as the water monsters in folklore. Kappa was also called water tiger, and it was a water monster recorded in the Compendium of Materia Medica. However, he had always thought that it was just a legend. He didn't expect to meet a living one here today. You know me? The Kappa murmured, and at the same time, it stared at Lin Yi with great vigilance. Strictly speaking, it was an amphibious creature. The water was its world, and it could also move freely on land. Obviously, it was only in the water that it was confident. Now that it was suddenly grabbed by Lin Yi, it was extremely nervous. Looking at its posture, it didn't seem to want to attack Lin Yi, but to find a way to escape. Hee, it really is the legendary Kappa. This primordial trial has truly broadened my horizons. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. First it was Gomang, and now it was the Kappa. The ancient trial really lived up to its reputation. It really felt like returning to the ancient era. Human, what do you want? The Kappa still stared at Lin Yi with great vigilance. Nothing, I'm just a little curious. Lin Yi appeared very relaxed. In fact, there was really nothing to be nervous about. Before this Kappa was caught, he was really nervous for a while. After all, something that could hide from his divine sense was definitely not easy to deal with. However, there was no need to worry now, because this guy was at most a Foundation establishment level spirit beast. It couldn't pose any real threat to Lin Yi. As for why it could hide from Lin Yi's divine sense, it was most likely the Kappa's innate ability. After all, this guy was an existence equivalent to a river god in some legends. Leave this place, leave the 100-herb garden, or you will regret it. The Kappa threatened. Unfortunately, its body was too small, and it was dragged up by Lin Yi, so this threat was not much of a deterrent. So this is the 100-herb garden. Lin Yi nodded, looked it up and down and said, then, are you the master of this place? I'm not, I'm just the gardener here. If my master finds out, you're dead. Hurry up and leave this place, human. The Kappa tried to drive him away again. Who is your master? Lin Yi ignored it and continued to ask with great interest. My master is. The Kappa suddenly paused. Its eyes blinked, and the water that had accumulated in the depression on its head suddenly soared into the sky. Then, it poured down like rain. As soon as its body came into contact with the water, it immediately melted into nothingness. It looks quite simple and honest, but I didn't expect it to be so cunning. Lin Yi shook his head. His figure flashed and suddenly appeared in front of the right side. Without hesitation, he used 1,000 frenzied kicks. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, a thin figure suddenly appeared on the tip of Lin Yi's foot. Then, without any suspense, it flew out and fell heavily into a pile of spirit herbs dozens of meters away. You! How can you see me? The Kappa didn't care about its injury. Its face that was covered with thick scales squeezed out an extremely shocked expression. Disappearing into the water was the innate ability of the Kappa race. Even existences that were much stronger than them couldn't detect it. It didn't expect that it would fail in front of a human. Is it strange? Lin Yi asked it back. It was true that this guy's ability to merge into the water was very good. Just like when it hid in the river, it could be said to be flawless. Even Lin Yi's divine sense couldn't detect it. However, at least 50% of the reason was that the clear river water made people subconsciously become careless. Now that this factor was gone, even if Lin Yi couldn't completely lock onto its position, he could still find some clues and signs. This was enough for him. The Kappa was obviously choked and couldn't speak. Just as Lin Yi judged, it wasn't a powerful existence. If it was a little stronger in the river, it would be enough to deal with most spirit beasts and human cultivators at the Foundation establishment stage. However, once it was on the ground, it was much weaker. In the end, the only trump card it could rely on was the innate ability of the Kappa race, disappearing into the water. But now, Lin Yi had broken its innate ability, and it was stuck on the ground, unable to return to the river. Even if its psychological defense wasn't completely broken, it wasn't far from it. Human, what do you want? The Kappa looked at Lin Yi with a little panic. It pointed at the rare spirit herbs around them and said, "If you leave now, I can let you take some spirit herbs with you. Otherwise, if you alarm the master, you're dead." Chapter 52-43. These are all rare and precious elixirs. How can they be trash? Kappa quickly argued. It was the gardener of this place, and it could be said that every spiritual herb here was its blood and sweat. However, when it saw that Lin Yi was empty-handed, it immediately became speechless. It seemed that this human really didn't care about the spiritual herbs it had cultivated. After being stunned for a moment, Kappa suddenly said, "I can give you an even more precious spiritual herb, but you have to leave this place." "Oh. Let me see," Lin Yi said with interest. Hearing this, Kappa walked towards the river. When it saw Lin Yi stretch out his hand to stop it, it said, "The spiritual herb is in the river." "Fine, if you dare to lie to me, I will blow up this river and destroy your 100-herb garden," Lin Yi warned. To be honest, he didn't trust this Kappa, but there was nothing to worry about. With Kappa's strength, it wouldn't matter even if he let the tiger return to the mountain. Kappa carefully walked around Lin Yi, and only when it returned to the river did it let out a sigh of relief. Looking at Lin Yi, who was still standing in the same place, its eyes rolled. If it wasn't for Lin Yi's warning just now, it might really hide and never come out again. But now, it couldn't. If it really angered Lin Yi, blowing up the river and destroying the 100-herb garden would be a small matter. If it attracted its master and ruined its master's plan, then it would really be finished. Even if it had 10 lives, it wouldn't be enough to die. Sure enough, not long after, it reappeared on the river surface, holding a small bead in its hand. It was transparent and flawless like the clear river water, like a luminous pearl, exuding an intoxicating light. At first glance, it was obvious that it was not an ordinary item. "This water bead is for you, leave this place quickly, human." Kappa held the small bead and said, "Give it to me." Lin Yi's tone was very calm, but it was unquestionable. Kappa hesitated for a moment. Obviously, it didn't want to leave the river. Otherwise, it wouldn't feel safe, especially when it had to face a dangerous human cultivator like Lin Yi. However, it had no other choice. If it dared to say no, Lin Yi might do something to it. It couldn't bear the consequences. In the end, Kappa obediently walked over and handed the water bead to Lin Yi. Lin Yi was a little surprised when he held it in his hand. He thought that this water bead would be as hard as other beads, but he didn't expect it to be soft. It was really a water bead, but it was covered with a layer of transparent water film. "What's the use of this?" Lin Yi asked curiously. He had traveled all over the Heaven Step Island for several years and could be said to be very knowledgeable, but he had never seen this kind of water bead. However, he still had good eyesight. He could feel that this water bead was not simple. Just holding it in his hand made him feel refreshed. This water bead can clear the mind and calm the chi. Its main use is to heal the spiritual sense. If the spiritual sense is injured, it can recover in a very short time. Kappa explained in detail. Really? Lin Yi was happy when he heard this. No wonder he felt so comfortable holding it in his hand. It turned out that it was something specially used to heal the spiritual sense. Don't forget that he was now in the soul body. This thing was simply a great supplement for him. With this water droplet, Lin Yi felt even more confident. After all, a soul injury was a huge problem. If he really did get hurt, his self-healing abilities wouldn't be able to be of much use. Just like last time when he was injured, he basically relied on the starring charcoal to recover. After so many months of continuous use, the spiritual sense energy of the starring charcoal had been consumed to the point that not much was left. Once he suffered a serious injury again, it would be hard to say if he could recover smoothly. Maybe his soul would collapse. During this period, Lin Yi was worried about this. He needed to consume spiritual sense energy to maintain his soul body. Now, the starring charcoal was his only source of spiritual sense energy. Once it was completely consumed, it would not be long before he returned to Heaven Step Island. If it was before, it would not have mattered, but now that Cold and the others were in the dangerous primordial trial land, how could he go back with peace of mind? Fortunately, the remaining spiritual sense energy of the starring charcoal could still support him for a period of time. However, there was a very important premise, and that was not to be injured. Once he was injured, the spiritual sense energy needed to heal him would be no small matter. It was at least thousands of times more than what he needed to maintain his spiritual sense. The remaining spiritual sense energy of the starring charcoal could not withstand such a large consumption. Fortunately, Lin Yi had a lot of means to protect himself, and he had figured out the almost unsolvable means of semi-soul and primordial soul states. Putting aside everything else, it was not easy to seriously injure Lin Yi. Even an existence like the brain-eating insect could not do it. It was because of this that the starring charcoal could last until now. Otherwise, if he was injured every few days, his spiritual sense energy would have long been depleted. However, in this dangerous primordial trial land, accidents could happen all the time. Even Lin Yi could not guarantee that he would not be injured. If he was really injured, the remaining spiritual sense energy of the starring charcoal would not be enough. What should he do then? Now, the water droplet that Kappa took out gave him a glimmer of hope. Although it was not as versatile as the starring charcoal, it could provide spiritual sense energy at all times. But if it could really heal his spiritual sense as Kappa said, then it could solve a problem for him. At the very least, he would not have to worry about being injured. Of course it's true. Okay, I've already given you my best treasure. Human, you should leave quickly, Kappa urged. For it, taking out a water droplet was already a violation of the rules. If Lin Yi stayed here for too long and was discovered by its master, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lin Yi put away the water droplet and suddenly smiled. Did I say that I would leave here? You dare to act shamelessly. Despicable human. Kappa suddenly became anxious. It had tried every possible way to drive Lin Yi away, to the point that it did not hesitate to give up its water droplet. How could it have imagined that Lin Yi would have such a face? Humans had always been despicable and shameless. This saying was indeed true. Hey, you have to be responsible for what you say. When did I say that I would leave if you gave me a water droplet? Lin Yi looked at it and said. Woo. Kappa tilted its head and thought for a long time, but it could not think of a way to refute. Because Lin Yi had never said anything like that from beginning to end, it was just its own wishful thinking. Chapter 52-44. How many more do you want? Kappa jumped up and even forgot about Lin Yi's overwhelming strength. He pointed at Lin Yi's head and scolded, You greedy, shameless human. This is a water droplet that can only be produced in 100 years. How many do you think there are? Lin Yi paused. He couldn't help but look at this childlike Kappa curiously. He did look a little weird, with a little bit of slyness in him, but he was still a simple and honest guy. That impatient look of his was quite interesting. After a while, Kappa also reacted. It quickly retracted its hand and took a few steps back. Looking at Lin Yi, it stammered in fear, You should leave quickly. I don't have any more water droplets, not even one, really? Lin Yi didn't believe it. He questioned, since it can only be produced in 100 years, and no one has been here for at least 1,000 years, how can there only be one? Even if there aren't 10 or 20, there should be at least 8 or 10, right? This primordial trial ground only opened once every 1,000 years. In other words, the last time a human cultivator set foot in this place was at least 1,000 years ago. Moreover, this place was so strange and remote that ordinary people would not be able to discover it. Perhaps no one had come here for thousands of years. 8 or 10? Are you crazy? Kappa was about to go berserk again. However, facing the pressure from Lin Yi, it didn't dare to be too presumptuous. It could only suppress its anger and patiently explained, an entire river, under the protection of our Kappa clan, can only produce one water droplet after 100 years. After the water droplet is formed, it needs to be nourished continuously. Moreover, we have to spend even more energy to nourish the holy water droplet. Holy water droplet? Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Kappa suddenly realized that it had said something it shouldn't have. It quickly changed its words. What holy water droplet? I'm just talking about water droplets. Anyway, there is only one water droplet. Even if you kill me, I won't get another one. Really? Lin Yi stared at it with a faint smile. Kappa couldn't help but feel a little guilty. After thinking for a while, it said, if worst comes to worst, I will return that human to you. That human? Oh, you mean Fei Yangsheng? Hearing this, Lin Yi was embarrassed. He had almost forgotten about this. After all, Kappa was not one of them, so he didn't really care about Fei Yangsheng. Fortunately, Kappa was not a ferocious spirit beast. Otherwise, after such a long time, Fei Yangsheng would have eaten up everything. Not long after, Fei Yangsheng was dragged out by Kappa like a dead dog. It seemed that he didn't suffer any serious injuries. He just lost consciousness temporarily. Bubbles were still coming out of his mouth. Leave quickly. Otherwise, I guarantee that you will die here, absolutely. Kappa almost begged. Of course, it didn't care about Lin Yi's life or death, but the problem was that if its master found out that a human cultivator had broken in, even it would be punished, and it might even be buried with Lin Yi. How about this? I won't make things difficult for you. Answer a few of my questions, and I will leave after you understand them. Lin Yi said. Kappa hesitated for a moment. It knew that it wasn't a good idea to delay like this. However, it couldn't defeat Lin Yi, so it could only bite the bullet and said, okay, you said it yourself. You can't go back on your words. Okay, how many Kappa are there here? Lin Yi asked. This wasn't what he really cared about, he was just curious. Just me, Kappa answered straightforwardly. You are the only one in your Kappa clan? Lin Yi was stunned. He thought that since it was a clan, there should be as many Kappa as the ancient Goman clan. There should at least be an ancient Kappa king, but he didn't expect that there was only one Kappa. There used to be a lot of them, but a big accident happened 100 years ago. Everyone was killed by my master. I was the only one left to take care of the herb garden. Kappa said with a hint of sadness. What kind of existence is your master? Don't you hate him? Lin Yi asked casually. According to what Kappa said, it should be an irreconcilable enmity. Why would it continue to work for that master? Kappa was silent for a moment, then said, I can't tell you. Okay, then I will ask something else. Lin Yi didn't insist. He changed the topic and asked, is there anything special about this river? Is it the legendary river of divine knowledge? River of divine knowledge? How can it be the river of divine knowledge? Kappa looked at Lin Yi as if he was an idiot. He curled his lips and said, the river of divine knowledge is the largest river in the world. It is more than 100 zhang wide. How wide is this river of mine? There is nothing special about this river. It is only because it is guarded by our Kappa clan that it becomes different. This answer wasn't surprising. Lin Yi didn't think it was the river of divine knowledge at all. He continued to ask, one last question. Tell me about the holy water bead. This. Kappa hesitated for a moment. He hated himself for spilling the beans. Judging from this human's unforgiving behavior, he wouldn't leave until he figured out what was going on. In the end, Kappa could only brace himself and explain, the holy water bead is the most sacred object of our Kappa clan. It is said that it is the first generation of water beads. After being nourished by our ancestors for countless years, its function has far exceeded the scope of ordinary water beads. It is also because of the holy water bead that we were valued by our master. However, 100 years ago, when we were collectively raising the holy water bead, an accident happened. A crack appeared on the holy water bead. In a rage, our master killed everyone. Oh, so that's how it is. It was only then that Lin Yi realized what was going on. This Kappa clan was really quite pitiful. Not only was their holy item stolen, the entire clan was forced to be slaves, and the slightest problem with their holy item almost wiped out the entire clan. There really wasn't anyone else who could live such a tragic life. I have said what I should and shouldn't say. You can leave now, right? Kappa looked at Lin Yi eagerly. He was afraid that Lin Yi would go back on his words again. If that happened, he would really be at his wit's end. All right, if that's the case, then tell me how to leave this place. Lin Yi nodded without hesitation. Chapter 52-45. More importantly, Lin Yi's top priority right now was to meet up with Cold and the others. He didn't dare to waste too much time here. Okay, come with me. Kappa was overjoyed. As long as Lin Yi was willing to leave this place as soon as possible, it didn't mind sending Lin Yi and Cold along the way. However, at this moment, a buzzing sound suddenly came from afar. Although he couldn't see the appearance of the other party clearly due to the distance, Lin Yi's divine sense had already locked on the position and shape of the other party. It was a giant poisonous bee the size of an adult. Patrol bee. Why is it here? Kappa froze. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't react at all. Kappa, on the other hand, was nervous to the point where he didn't know what to do. Are you afraid? Lin Yi glanced at it. Kappa was so nervous that it stuttered, if it finds out, you're dead. I'm dead too, but this guy doesn't look strong. Lin Yi was a little surprised. The patrol bee looked scary, and it didn't look easy to mess with. However, it was just a spirit beast at the foundation establishment stage. It was a piece of cake for Lin Yi to deal with it. It's not strong. Kappa wanted to retort subconsciously, since none of the patrol bees were easy to mess with. But after thinking about Lin Yi's performance just now, a mere patrol bee didn't seem to be a threat to the human at all. For the sake of the water droplet you gave me, I can get rid of it for you without anyone knowing. Lin Yi suggested. To be honest, he didn't have any bad feelings for this Kappa. On the contrary, he felt that this guy was actually not bad. He would help it if he could. Impossible. Kappa shook its head quickly. What's impossible? Didn't you say that we're dead if it finds us? Don't tell me you want to help it deal with me? Lin Yi asked in surprise. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that no matter how strong you are, you can't eliminate a single patrol bee without being noticed. Because they share the same brain, once one patrol bee is in trouble, all the other patrol bees will notice it immediately. So no matter what, as long as it discovers your existence, Master and the other patrol bees will know, Kappa said with a bitter face. Common brain mechanism? That would be troublesome. Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. The existence of such a mechanism was indeed a bit difficult to solve. Even if he could kill the patrol bee in a second, it would be useless. As long as he was discovered by the patrol bee, the situation would be out of control. In this way, the only option left for Lin Yi was to escape. If he was alone, it wouldn't matter. Unless he was willing, no matter how many patrol bees there were, they wouldn't be able to detect him. However, the problem was that Fei Yangsheng was lying unconscious on the ground. The patrol bees' speed wasn't slow, and bees had always had good perception. Lin Yi wasn't confident that he could escape with such a burden. While they were talking, the patrol bee had already rushed in their direction. Its purpose was very clear. Even Lin Yi was a little nervous. Could it have already discovered him? Kappa was far more panicked than Lin Yi. In a hurry, he dragged Fei Yangsheng on the ground and jumped into the river. At the same time, he said to Lin Yi, "You come in too. I'll use invisible underwater to cover you. It shouldn't be able to find you." Lin Yi was stunned for a moment. In fact, he didn't need to jump into the river, but in order to experience the Kappa's innate ability, he still followed. After Kappa brought Lin Yi and Fei Yangsheng into the water, Lin Yi soon felt a faint layer of water covering his body. It didn't feel heavy at first, but when his body was completely covered by this layer of water, a magical scene happened. Lin Yi found that his primordial spirit had become transparent like the river. At first glance, there was almost no trace of it. It didn't take long for Lin Yi to figure out the theory behind it. It was a very advanced camouflage. In truth, many creatures in the natural world had camouflage, but creatures like the Kappa's camouflage were extremely rare. Of course, invisible underwater was definitely not a simple camouflage. Otherwise, it could at most confuse the naked eye, but it couldn't confuse the perception of divine sense. The real deceiving divine sense was this layer of water. Because of this layer of water covering his body, in the perception of divine sense, Lin Yi's whole body became the same as the river. Lin Yi couldn't help but secretly praise it. No wonder it was the innate ability of the Kappa family. Invisible underwater was really brilliant. It didn't take long for the patrol bee to appear above the river. At the same time, it sent a strange and sharp divine sense transmission. "Kappa! Come out!" Kappa's heart suddenly skipped a beat, but he didn't dare to act rashly. He could only use invisible underwater to carefully hide the figures of Lin Yi and Fei Yangsheng. At the same time, he slowly emerged from the river. "Kappa! Master is summoning you." The patrol bee continued to use divine sense transmission. Hearing this, Kappa was slightly relieved. It seemed that the other party hadn't discovered Lin Yi and Fei Yangsheng yet, so he said, "But I have to stay to guard the herb garden. This is Master's order. You go, I will guard the herb garden." "This is Master's new order," the patrol bee said stiffly. Kappa was suddenly in a dilemma. It didn't matter to him, but if he left, he wouldn't be able to use invisible underwater to hide Lin Yi and Fei Yangsheng anymore. If he left, he would definitely be exposed, and all his efforts would be in vain. "What are you waiting for?" "Master is waiting," the patrolling bee urged. "Brother Patrol Bee, can you tell me why Master summoned me?" Kappa asked eagerly. "Master wants to let those distinguished guests see the holy water bead with their own eyes. He needs you to temporarily cover that crack. That's why he summoned you." The patrol bee answered honestly. "Oh." Kappa nodded. "What are you waiting for?" the patrol bee urged again. According to its master's ruthless style, if Kappa didn't arrive soon, then it would be its turn to run out of luck. Kappa wanted to go, but he didn't dare to go just like that. After thinking for a while, he finally had an idea and said, "That. I just heard a big noise in front. Maybe the explosive flame fruit exploded, or maybe something broke in. For safety's sake, it's better to go and confirm it." "You're so long-winded." "I'll do it. You go quickly. If Master gets impatient, you'll be in trouble," the patrol bee said and quickly left. Chapter 52-46. However, he still didn't dare to deactivate invisible entry. The patrol bee's perception and alertness were top-notch. Even if he could lure them away, it wouldn't be that easy to fool them. "Can't we go up?" Lin Yi asked. "No, the only exit here is the stairway. If you go up, you will definitely be noticed by the patrol bee. I can only take you through the waterway," Kappa said. Unknowingly, it and Lin Yi had become locusts on the same rope. Instead, it had become their accomplice. Lin Yi didn't object. After all, he had nothing to be afraid of. Even if they were exposed, he had enough power to protect himself. As for what would happen to the unconscious Fei Yangsheng, he could only leave it to fate. Kappa's speed in the water was extremely fast. Using invisible entry, it brought Lin Yi and Fei Yangsheng downstream. In just a few moments, they had reached the end of the river. In front of them was a huge gate. However, the gate wasn't completely closed. When Kappa approached it, a small opening suddenly appeared in the middle, just enough for one person to pass through. Behind the gate is the stairway. You can go out by climbing the stairway. Kappa explained, then took the lead and went through the gate. Lin Yi also pushed Fei Yangsheng into the gate, then followed closely behind. As soon as the two passed through the gate, they were pulled out of the water by Kappa. In front of them was a huge and empty tree hole. They couldn't see the top at first glance. They only knew that the tree was very tall. There were spiral stairs on the inner wall. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was a stairway to heaven. Hurry up, the stairway is the outside world. Kappa urged. It then walked towards the water curtain cave in front of them. Hey, what's behind this water curtain cave? Why is it so noisy? Lin Yi asked curiously. He vaguely heard that it was very noisy in front of them. It felt like a lot of people were having a party. Behind us is the inner garden. Today is our master's wedding. Many guests have been invited. Of course, it's very lively. Why do you care so much? Hurry up, or you won't be able to leave if someone finds out. Kappa urged. Wedding? You guys are into this too? Hearing that, Lin Yi smiled, but he didn't intend to explore further. He immediately dragged the unconscious Fei Yangsheng up the celestial stairway. No matter what, he couldn't waste any more time in this place. Kappa finally let out a sigh of relief, thinking that it had finally sent away these two human gods of plague. However, before it could walk out of the water curtain cave, Lin Yi suddenly came back with Fei Yangsheng in a hurry. You won't go back on your word again, right? Kappa was startled and hurriedly begged, I really don't have any more water droplets with me. The holy water droplets are in Master's hands. Don't even think about getting them unless you want to die. I beg you, leave quickly. No, I can't leave. Lin Yi smiled bitterly and shook his head. Why can't we leave? The celestial stairway is right here. You just have to climb up and you'll be out. Don't tell me you can't even climb up. Kappa couldn't help but become anxious. It thought that Lin Yi was determined to continue blackmailing it. Humans had always had a bad reputation. Despicable, shameless, and insatiable were all adjectives tailored to describe humans. I can climb up, but I've encountered an old opponent. I have to hide for the time being. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. What old opponent? Kappa was full of disbelief. The brain-eating bug. Lin Yi said seriously. For safety's sake, he had just transformed into his Yuanshan state and floated up to explore for a while. As a result, he took a deep breath. The brain-eating bug, his old opponent, was actually swooping down from above. It really shocked him. Fortunately, he acted cautiously. Otherwise, he would really be in big trouble this time. There was no doubt that for the current Lin Yi, the brain-eating bug was a powerful and almost invincible opponent. With his current means, he could not do anything to the brain-eating bug. If he fought it, he would only suffer. Admittedly, last time he successfully escaped the brain-eating bug's pursuit using his Yuanshan state, but the premise was that they were far enough apart. Once they were close, the brain-eating bug's perception was very likely to detect his Yuanshan state. At that time, he would be in big trouble. Lin Yi did not dare to take such a risk. The only thing he could do now was to hide and get as far away from the brain-eating bug as possible. Brain-eating bug? You mean Sir Envoy? That's an existence on the same level as our master. Kappa was also shocked. It had obviously heard of the brain-eating bug. Although it did not believe it at first, it made sense after thinking about it carefully. Although the brain-eating bug and its master had always been at odds, they were both the left and right hands of that Sir. Since it was its master's wedding day, it was not surprising that the brain-eating bug came to support them. So, hurry up and take us back to hide. This time, it was Lin Yi's turn to urge it. Although he found that the brain-eating bug's position was still relatively high, with the brain-eating bug's speed, even if it was just descending slowly, there was not much time for him to dawdle. How do we go back? If we come in from the outside, we just need to open the small gate, and no one will care. But if we want to go out from here, we must open the big gate. The movement will definitely alert everyone in the inner garden. We won't even know how we died. Kappa said anxiously. Then, Lin Yi thought for a moment before making a decision. How about this? We'll go into the inner garden, and you think of a way to hide this bastard someplace. As long as no one finds out, I don't have to worry about it. I have my ways. You're crazy. Kappa was shocked when it heard this. Not only was its master inside, but all the elixirs here were also gathered. At the same time, there were VIPs coming from all directions. How could it hide a living person like Fei Yangsheng? However, Lin Yi did not have time to waste with it because the brain-eating bug had entered the range of his divine sense. If they did not leave, they would be discovered. He immediately said, no matter what, you find a way, that's it. As soon as his voice fell, Lin Yi disappeared, leaving behind a panicked Kappa and an unconscious Fei Yangsheng. Shameless human. In the end, Kappa was forced to bite the bullet and bring Fei Yangsheng with him. The moment they passed through the water curtain cave, it used its innate ability to enter the water to conceal itself. Fortunately, all the guests' attention was on its master, so no one noticed it. Finally, it managed to sneak in without any danger. Chapter 52-47. There were more than 100 spirit beasts of various sizes, and each of them had a variety of appearances. However, there was a handsome man lying lazily on the high platform in the middle. That was its master. Master. Kappa walked over and knelt down respectfully. Why are you so slow? The handsome man frowned slightly. If it was in the past, he would have punished Kappa severely. However, today was a special day. For once, he was magnanimous. He ordered, "Come, nourish my holy water bead. Let everyone have a look." The handsome man took out a water droplet from his pocket as he spoke. However, his water droplet was much bigger than Lin Yi's, and even the light it emitted was different. Lin Yi's water droplet was clear and transparent, but the man's water droplet emitted an indescribable holy light, making people want to worship it subconsciously. The only drawback was that there was a shallow crack in it. This greatly reduced the light it emitted. Otherwise, it would be much more holy and solemn than it was now. Yes. Kappa respectfully took the holy water bead from the handsome man's hand. He began to nourish the holy water bead with the innate ability of the Kappa clan. The principle was similar to becoming invisible in water. It also covered the holy water bead with a thin layer of water film. However, this water film would soon be completely absorbed by the holy water bead. Therefore, the Kappa had to continuously use this ability until it was exhausted. Don't you still have a water bead? Just use it to nourish the holy water bead. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Seeing this, the handsome man frowned again. The holy water bead could directly absorb an entire normal water bead. Although it couldn't repair the crack, it could at least make it shine brightly in a very short time. That was the reason why he summoned Kappa to meet with him. Hearing this, Kappa panicked. He stammered, "Master, that water bead had some problems not long ago. It needs to be nourished before it can be used." Trash. You can't even handle such a small matter. The handsome man's face darkened. He coldly snorted, "After this is over, you will receive 100 lashes." "Yes. Thank you for the punishment, Master." Kappa quickly replied. Under Kappa's nourishment, the holy light of the holy water bead gradually grew stronger. In the beginning, the spirit beasts of all sizes did not pay much attention to it. However, when the holy water pearl's radiance enveloped the entire place, the spirit beasts instantly quietened down and fixed their gazes on the holy water pearl. He could not move a single inch. Suddenly, an abrupt voice sounded, "Oh? Are you showing off your treasures here again?" The spirit beasts were taken aback. Who would dare to speak in such a frivolous tone at a time like this? Is that person tired of living? Turning his head to look, what he saw was actually a large, white, and tender worm. However, this worm was extremely strange. On its back was a pair of wings that symbolized the primordial Gomang race. At that moment it was flying over fearlessly. According to the rules of the spirit beast world, unless they had been informed in advance, flying above their heads at such a low altitude was tantamount to provoking them. This was especially true during such an important banquet. Such behavior was simply courting death. Where did this bug come from? How dare you barge into Lord Protector's wedding banquet? A black ape with a triangle on its head immediately leaped up. This was a rare opportunity, and it wanted to perform well. Although the Lord Protector had gathered them together in the name of the wedding, with so many big and small spiritual beasts together, there was bound to be a clear distinction between the strong and the weak. With its strength comparable to that of the gold core stage, it naturally did not dare to be lonely. It was worried that it would not have a chance to show its face, and as a result, this reckless insect came to its door. Judging from its appearance, this three-horned ape was much more powerful and domineering than the insect. Its strong killing intent made people not dare to approach it, especially its triangular horn tips, which were emitting a cold light. Each horn tip was condensed with different elements. Water, fire, and wind were fused with each other, and finally condensed into the amazing power of the three-horned horn. The power of this strike was at least comparable to that of a late-stage golden core cultivator. If it were any of the other spirit beasts present, this attack from the three-horned ape was enough to make them retreat. Even if their strength was above it, they would have to weigh it carefully. After all, the power of the three-phase horn thrust was not something to be trifled with. Unfortunately, this time, it was facing the brain-eating insect. The brain-eating insect didn't even look at it. Just when it was about to hit itself, an incomparably sharp and sinister claw suddenly appeared on its body. Then, it didn't care about the three-faced horn stab and directly clawed at it. Crack! Accompanied by the sound of bones breaking, the triangular horn that the three-horned ape was so proud of was forcibly clawed off. Not only that, even its head was clawed into pieces, and in an instant, it became a mutilated corpse. There was a sudden dead silence, and all the spiritual beasts, without exception, had a dumbfounded expression. The scene just now was too sudden and unexpected. They really could not digest it for a while. What kind of divine being was this insect? In the blink of an eye, the brain-eating insect had flown to the center of the high platform, and the newly grown claw did not hesitate to claw at Kappa. Its target was, of course, not Kappa, but the holy water bead in Kappa's hand. If it wanted the holy water bead, Kappa could not resist at all with its little strength. However, the obstacle it needed to face was not Kappa, but the master behind Kappa. The brain-eating insect's ferocious claw was finally stopped by a white palm. There was no shocking momentum or aftermath. It seemed that the two just clapped their palms lightly, and then they both took a big step back. TSK, as expected of the Lord Protector. You can actually resolve my attack in such a gentle manner. I admire you. The brain-eating insect flattered without sincerity. Likewise, Lord Envoy is also not bad. After sleeping for hundreds of years, you still have such strength. It's an eye-opener for me. The handsome man had a calm smile on his face. As soon as the voice fell, the audience suddenly burst into an uproar. All the big and small spiritual beasts finally realized the identity of the insect. It turned out to be the Lord Envoy who had been sleeping for hundreds of years. They could not be blamed for their slow reaction. The brain-eating insect had always been elusive, and there were very few spiritual beasts who had seen its face. In addition, its form was complex and ever-changing, and it often slept for hundreds of years, so it was normal for it to not react for a while. However, in this way, they felt a little sorry for the three-horned ape just now. It dared to attack the legendary Lord Envoy without asking anything. It deserved to die so miserably. After all, this was a brain-eating insect that could be on equal footing with the Lord Protector in terms of status and strength. Chapter 52-48. Is that so? That's still not as impressive as Lord Protector. You have so many underlings under your command, and you can command hundreds of people with one call. I'm different. I'm a loner with the title of Special Envoy, yet I'm still offended by these small fries. It's really shameful, the brain-eating bug said in an unpredictable tone. Lord Protector is overpraising me. Forgive me for saying too much, but with your reputation as the brain-eating bug, who would dare to be your underling? The handsome man said sarcastically. In the eyes of the brain-eating bug, all spirit beasts were just its food. If they followed it, they might become its rations at any time. Unless there was a hole in their brains, who would dare to be its underling? That's true. I'm a loner, so that Lord Protector can be at ease. Unlike Lord Protector, who is loyal to him. However, I also advise you to take it easy, Lord Protector. There are too many people, and if some idiot touches the Lord's reverse scale, I'm afraid even Lord Protector will have to bear the consequences, the brain-eating bug said with a smile. Don't worry about it. Lord Protector, don't tell me you're here just to chat with me. The handsome man looked at it up and down. That's not it. I heard that Lord Protector is getting married, and I happen to be nearby. Since we've worked together, I should come and congratulate you, shouldn't I? The brain-eating bug said. That being said, this guy was empty-handed. Not only did he kill the three-horned ape in front of everyone, but he also directly snatched the holy water droplet. No matter how one looked at it, he did not look like he was here to congratulate them. He did not come with good intentions. However, since it said so, the handsome man could not refute it, at least not in public, so he said, then I have to thank Lord Protector for giving me face. You're welcome. I came empty-handed. As long as Lord Protector doesn't mind, it's fine. After all, I don't have a big family business like you, and I don't have any treasures on hand, so I can only come and support you, the brain-eating bug said. Not at all. It's an honor for Lord Protector to come and support me, the handsome man responded with a faint smile. Oh. It's great that Lord Protector is so understanding, but I have a presumptuous request. I hope Lord Protector can agree to it, the brain-eating bug said. Give him an inch and he wants a mile. This word appeared in the minds of all the spirit beasts present at the same time. The brain-eating insect's behavior was more than that of a hoodlum, it could be said to be a rogue to a certain extent. It was the brain-eating insect. If it was any other spirit beast that dared to be so presumptuous in front of the Lord Protector, they would have died a tragic death. Don't tell me you want my holy water bead? The handsome man said with a faint smile. Can I? The brain-eating bug's eyes lit up. Everyone wanted a treasure like the holy water droplet, and it was no exception. Otherwise, it would not have tried to snatch it so blatantly. Mr. Special Envoy, it's fine that you came to my wedding banquet empty-handed, but you actually want my treasures. Is this really appropriate? The handsome man was instantly amused. It doesn't seem appropriate, so forget it. The brain-eating bug gave up quite straightforwardly. Its goal was not the holy water bead, it was just a whim. It immediately said, looking at the overall situation, the one with the most eyes and ears is you, Lord Protector. All the flowers and trees are your eyes and ears. Even the slightest movement on the ground cannot escape your control. So, I would like to trouble Lord Protector to help me find a person. A person? The handsome man was slightly taken aback. Yes, a human cultivator named Lin E, the brain-eating bug said directly. When it said this, it did not even think that Lin Yi was in the venue. It was just that it was not easy to detect his primordial spirit state. Why? Does Mr. Special Envoy have a grudge against this human? The handsome man asked with interest. He is my food. No one is allowed to touch him except me. Whoever touches him will die. The brain-eating bug threatened unscrupulously. In fact, it was no wonder that it was so concerned about Lin Yi. It rarely failed when it targeted its food, and a mere human was able to escape from under its nose. This was an unprecedented experience. The more this happened, the more it proved that Lin Yi was unique and powerful. For it, this was an unprecedented human food. Once it missed this opportunity, it might be a lifelong regret. What if I don't agree? The handsome man's expression suddenly sank. The brain-eating bug's threat was effective on other spirit beasts, but it had no effect on it. You don't agree? Aren't you afraid that I'll make a scene here? Are you sure that your ancient well of tranquility can withstand my torment? The brain-eating bug sneered and squinted at him. Regardless of who was stronger or weaker, one thing was certain. If they really fought, at least this place would definitely be destroyed into a mess, and the so-called wedding banquet would naturally be ruined. You dare? The handsome man's expression changed. Do you think I dare or not? The brain-eating bug laughed unscrupulously. At the same time, it shed its insect body and turned into an extremely ferocious and terrifying monster. Every part of its body was a horrifying existence copied after it devoured other powerful spirit beasts. This was almost an ultimate killing weapon that gathered the strongest side of all the local spirit beasts. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. For a moment, swords were drawn and bows were drawn. The other spirit beasts present were suddenly at a loss. Although they were considered to be the younger brothers of the Guardian, they could not intervene in such a high-level battle with their strength. Just like the three-horned ape just now, they were at most cannon fodder material. Fortunately, the situation was tense for a moment, but the two sides did not really fight. The handsome man suddenly laughed and said, "All right, isn't it just looking for someone? On account of today's wedding celebration, I'll agree to this small favor." Then, thank you, Sir Guardian. The brain-eating bug quickly returned to its harmless insect appearance. It was the complete opposite of the terrifying appearance of a weapon. I won't send you off. The handsome man immediately wanted to send the guest off. Although today was his wedding day, no one could afford to have a bad guest like the brain-eating bug. He was not afraid of the brain-eating bug, but he was afraid that the brain-eating bug would ruin his wedding. Sir Guardian is really ruthless. You didn't even ask me to stay for a drink. In that case, forget it. The brain-eating bug smiled and turned to fly toward the water curtain cave. Seeing that it was so cooperative, all the spirit beasts present, including the handsome man, could not help but sigh in relief. The moodiness of the brain-eating bug really put a lot of pressure on them. If the brain-eating bug did not leave, this wedding banquet would be tormented. Chapter 52-49. It said, "Oh, by the way, if you can't find Lin Yi, please help me find the traces of another group of people. I don't know their names, but it'll be fine as long as it's a group of about 10 people." The others did not understand what it meant, but Lin Yi, who was hiding in the corner in his spirit form, felt his heart skip a beat. The brain-eating bug was obviously referring to Kuld and the others. Once it started to target Kuld and the others, it would be troublesome. Okay. The handsome man agreed very happily this time. It was obvious that he was eager to send the brain-eating bug away as soon as possible. After all, the brain-eating bug was a real plague to him. Thank you very much, but you'd better hurry up. Don't let me wait too long, or I'll have to trouble you again. The brain-eating bug left a final threat and left. Now that the brain-eating bug had finally left, the handsome man breathed an imperceptible sigh of relief. He was originally excited to take out the holy water droplet to broaden the horizons of the spirit beasts present, but now he had completely lost the interest. He casually put away the holy water droplet. As for the kappa, it scrambled to the side. Even though it had only been feeding the holy water droplet for a short period of time, it was almost exhausted. At this time, a senior Golden Core stage spirit beast stood up and suggested in front of everyone, "Sir Guardian, the auspicious time has come. Why don't you invite the new madam out for us to see so that we can know who our Madam Guardian is?" "Yes. Quickly invite the new madam out." The other spirit beasts also followed suit. A smile appeared on the handsome man's face when he heard this. Seeing as the spirit beasts were in high spirits, he said, "That's great, it's time for her to meet all of you so that there won't be any misunderstandings in the future. Servants, bring the new madam out." As soon as he said that, 4 gorgeously dressed maids immediately went to the luxurious tent at the back to invite the new madam out. Of course, they were all transformed from spirit beasts, not pure humans. The transformation of a spirit beast into a human form was not absolutely related to its strength realm. It all depended on whether it had the talent in this aspect. Some spirit beasts could not transform into a human form even if they reached a very high realm, but some could do it at the foundation establishment stage, just like these 4 maids. At the same time, the wedding banquet finally returned to the festive atmosphere that a wedding banquet should have. All the spirit beasts were laughing and toasting each other, but Lin Yi, who was hiding at the side, felt a little gloomy. It was not surprising that the brain-eating bug was looking for trouble. He was confident enough to escape the brain-eating bug's pursuit, but now the brain-eating bug was targeting Cold and the others, which was really worrying. If that was all, it would be fine. Even if the brain-eating bug really wanted to find Cold and the others, it was not easy to find them. After all, it was difficult to see the situation on the ground even in the air. Unless one's divine sense was strong to a certain extent, otherwise, it was extremely difficult to carry out a large-scale search from the air. This was something that Lin Yi had experienced deeply. However, the problem was that the brain-eating bug's words revealed a piece of information that made Lin Yi tremble in fear. The handsome man in front of him, who was called the Guardian, had many eyes and ears. Almost all the flowers and trees were his eyes and ears. With his help, it was only a matter of time before the brain-eating bug locked onto Cold and the others' location. What should he do then? The last time, the brain-eating bug was too confident, so it let Cold and the others go indifferently. This time, it had already failed once. Since it mentioned this, it meant that it would do anything in order to catch Lin Yi. When it really came to that point, it would not be able to fight or escape. Lin Yi would really be helpless. It was urgent. Lin Yi was very anxious. He must come up with a countermeasure as soon as possible, otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, today was the wedding of the handsome man. With his tense relationship with the brain-eating bug, at least at this time, he would not try his best to find people for the brain-eating bug. Therefore, there was still a little time left for Lin Yi to think of a solution. Of course, it was only a little. Just when Lin Yi was desperately thinking of a solution, the new wife finally came out. When the Guardian's wife walked up the high platform and slowly walked to the side of the handsome man, the atmosphere suddenly boiled. At the same time, Lin Yi was stunned when he saw the person's appearance. The new wife was actually Duan Muyu. All the spirit beasts toasted the new wife in unison. After the toast, they immediately started discussing. One of them stood up and asked on behalf of the spirit beasts, "Lord Guardian, why is the new wife a human?" Even if they were both in human form, the aura of a human and a spirit beast was completely different. Any spirit beast could see that the new wife was definitely a pure human. A dignified Lord Guardian would actually marry a human woman as his wife. This was really strange. Admittedly, they all knew that the Lord Protector loved to transform into a human form. In fact, even the personal attendants of the Lord Protector would choose whether they could transform into a human form as their primary screening condition. Their actions were no different from that of a human. However, this was at most a preference, and it could not change the nature of a spiritual beast. More importantly, if the Lord Guardian were to marry a human woman, what kind of offspring would be created? Humans, spirit beasts, or half-beastmen. The handsome man glanced at the crowd and slowly said, "If it wasn't a human woman, why would I hold such a grand wedding banquet?" Generally speaking, spirit beasts' weddings were not so particular. Even if a ceremony was held at the level of a Lord Guardian, it would definitely be a ceremony unique to spirit beasts. It would not be a wedding banquet like humans. Now, everything was for the new wife. To be precise, it was for Duanmuyu. Then, Lord Guardian, can you introduce our Lord Guardian's wife to everyone? A spirit beast asked curiously. All right, I'll satisfy your curiosity. The handsome man looked at Duanmuyu with admiration and said in a proud tone, she was originally a disciple of the Archaic Alliance's Yiling sect. Her name is Duanmuyu. This time, she came here by chance and was originally going to be a human's tribute. However, I suddenly realized that her physique and mental cultivation method were very compatible with mine. It just so happened that I wanted to test the legendary dual cultivation technique, so she became my wife. I see. When Lin Yi heard this, he suddenly realized why Duanmuyu would appear in this place. However, he was very curious about Duanmuyu's current state. This strange woman with a masculine temperament was actually obediently becoming a bride and had no intention of resisting at all. Chapter 5250. This was Lin Yi's first reaction, and it was also the most likely situation. However, he carefully observed Duanmuyu's demeanor and behavior. There was no difference from before. At most, there was a little more uneasiness and shyness. This was a matter of course. It was impossible for anyone to not be shy when they became someone else's bride, even if it was an extraordinary woman like Duanmuyu. However, how could Duanmuyu really be willing to marry a spirit beast? Could it be the legendary love at first sight? Lin Yi was confused, but at this moment, Duanmuyu was next to the handsome man. Even if he was puzzled, he did not dare to go over and ask. After all, the handsome man was an existence that could contend with the brain-eating bug head-on. If Lin Yi's spirit were to go over rashly, it was very likely that he would be noticed by the other party. By then, it would be difficult for him to escape. What's more, Lin Yi had no time to care about Duanmuyu's business now. It was more important to find a way to solve the current predicament. If it weren't for this unexpected trip, if he didn't hear the words of the brain-eating bug, Lin Yi might continue to look for Cold and the others step by step. However, he had changed his mind now. If he could not ensure that he could hide himself, even if he found Cold and the others, it would be useless. It might even make the situation worse because the brain-eating bug would definitely chase after him. Unless he could cut off the source of the brain-eating bug's discovery, which was the handsome man in front of him who claimed to be able to control everything. Unfortunately, this was an absolute false proposition. If Lin Yi had the ability to deal with this handsome man, then he would not need to be so afraid of the brain-eating bug. After all, the two of them were at the same level. At the same time, the warm atmosphere of celebration continued. Under the instigation of the spirit beasts, the handsome man even crossed cups with Duanmuyu in public. To Lin Yi's surprise, Duanmuyu actually did it obediently and did not show the slightest displeasure. This was really strange. The wedding banquet did not last too long. It was not that these spirit beasts were self-restrained. It was because the time had come, and they began a new round of collective uproar, in the bridal chamber. In the bridal chamber. In the bridal chamber. Lin Yi blushed with shame. To be honest, he was also quite interested in this matter. If it weren't for the fear of being discovered and the urgency of the current situation, he wouldn't even mind going in and joining in the fun. He was very curious about how Duanmuyu, a strange woman with a man's heart, would behave in the bridal chamber. No matter what, it must be very interesting. You're having fun in the bridal room? Well, since it's a traditional human ceremony, let's do it in the bridal chamber. The handsome man readily accepted the advice. However, just as they escorted the handsome man and Duanmuyu to the luxurious tent at the back, a very strange sound suddenly came from a corner that no one paid attention to. To be precise, it was a hysterical scream. The source of the scream came from Fei Yangming, but it wasn't his fault. Anyone who was dragged into the water by a monster like the Kappa and woke up in the middle of a large group of ferocious spirit beasts would scream instinctively, unless he was a mute. However, when Fei Yangxing came back to his senses, he even had the heart to kill himself. If he didn't scream, with his hidden position, the possibility of these spirit beasts discovering him was not high. It was unlikely that these spiritual beasts, who were immersed in the melody of the nuptial chamber, would notice him, but now he had become the only focus of attention. Human? The group of spirit beasts looked at each other in dismay. If it was any other place, they would have swarmed forward and taken it. However, this was not the case here. This was the Lord Protector's territory. Only the Lord Protector had the final say in everything. If they acted on their own, the only outcome would be death. The handsome man's face also showed a little surprise. However, his eyes only stayed on Fei Yangming for less than a moment, and then he moved away, faintly saying, "Patrol bee. Here." Dozens of patrol bees suddenly flew up in the field. How did he get in? The handsome man asked in a mysterious tone. All the patrol bees fell silent. Today was a big day, and so many spirit beasts were gathered in one place. They absolutely did not dare to let down their guard. Every single patrolling bee was already doing their best to stay alert. They had already done everything they could. From the beginning to the end, they did not relax for even a moment. They thought that everything was foolproof, but they did not expect to miss a living person. How was this possible? "All right, I'll cut myself in half," the handsome man said indifferently. At first, the spiritual beasts did not understand what he meant. It was only when the patrol bees began to kill each other that they finally understood. The so-called suicide of half of the patrol bees meant that half of the patrol bees had to kill each other. As expected, the Lord Protector was as strict as ever. Fei Yangxing's scalp went numb as he watched the patrol bees turn into corpses and fall from the sky. Until now, he still had not figured out the situation. He did not even notice Duan Muyu's existence. He only knew that he was dead this time. That man was so cruel and merciless to his own subordinates. As an intruder, he would not be able to live past today. Sure enough, before the patrol bees had finished killing each other, the handsome man had already made a judgment on Fei Yangxing's fate. Kill him. If it was any other time, even if a human cultivator was caught by them, they would not kill him because they still had to offer human tributes to the Lord. However, it was different today. Today was the handsome man's wedding. This reckless human dared to disturb his wedding. Of course, he had to die. As soon as the handsome man finished speaking, the spirit beast closest to him picked Fei Yangxing up and was about to snap his neck without any hesitation. Fei Yangxing was scared out of his wits. He could not even scream at that moment, and could only struggle with all his might in vain. Lin Yi hesitated when he saw this scene. He was worried about Lang Lang and the others. At this moment, even Lang Lang and the others could not solve the crisis. If he rashly rescued Fei Yangxing, not to mention that there were so many spirit beasts present, especially powerful existences at the same level as the brain-eating bug, the success rate was very low. Even if he succeeded by a fluke, Lin Yi would inevitably be exposed. How could he deal with the next crisis? Chapter 52-51. Just as Lin Yi was thinking about taking a risk, Duan Muyu suddenly spoke from afar, "Wait." All the spirit beasts turned to look at her. This was the first time the new guardian wife had spoken. The handsome man asked, "Madam, do you have something to say?" "Since it's a marriage, I can't leave out my family." "Let him go, he's my family," Duan Muyu said. Duan Muyu said. When she said this, her expression was very calm. No one knew what she was thinking. Family? The handsome man frowned. Of course, he did not want to let Fei Yangxing go so easily. However, since Duan Muyu rarely spoke, especially in a public place like this, for the sake of the future, he had to give her face. He could only say, "Fine, but you have to tell me how you got in here." As soon as this was said, Kappa, who was in the corner, was shocked. If Fei Yangxing told him the whole story, he would be dead. Fei Yangxing's mind was blank at this moment, but he was not completely stunned. He stammered, I was accidentally swallowed by a man-eating flower. I struggled with all my might. I don't know why. I woke up and ended up here. I arrived here without knowing anything." The handsome man smiled pleasantly, but his face immediately darkened. "Nonsense. How could you break free from the entanglement of the Bingdi man-eating flower with your strength? Besides, even if you were lucky enough to escape, you should have landed in the 100-herb garden, not this inner garden. For the sake of your own life, I think it's better for you to tell me the truth." Fei Yangxing wanted to give up Lin Yi in a moment of desperation. Since he did not see Lin Yi here, he thought that Lin Yi was either dead or had escaped. No matter which one it was, it had nothing to do with him. However, at this moment, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. "I really don't know what happened. I only know that when I was struggling in a daze, I seemed to have seen a big white insect. It had a pair of wings, it didn't seem to have wings. I really can't remember, maybe it was a dream. When I woke up, I was already here. I'm telling the truth, brain-eating bug." The handsome man did not care much at first, but when he heard those words, his expression suddenly became solemn. He could ignore everything else, but when it came to the temperamental brain-eater, he could not take it lightly. Upon hearing that, the other spirit beasts came to a sudden realization. No wonder this human could appear in this place without anyone noticing. Even so many patrol bees did not notice him. It turned out to be the brain-eating insect's doing, which made sense now. Aside from the brain-eating worms, no other existence could hide from their senses and transport a living person in. Because of this preconceived notion, even the handsome man subconsciously chose to believe it and could not help but mutter, "Throwing a living person in for no reason? What is this guy trying to do? Is he trying to show off to me? I vaguely remember that the insect said something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it said something like a greeting gift." Fei Yangxing added carefully. "Greeting gift? Humph, what a greeting gift." The handsome man had no more doubts now. He did not care about Fei Yangxing's life or death at all, so he immediately ignored it and prepared to enter the bridal chamber. Kappa, who was in the corner, finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this. This was a walk on the edge of life and death. However, what puzzled him was that he was the one who sneaked Fei Yangxing in, and it had nothing to do with the brain-eating bug. Moreover, he had never seen the brain-eating bug, so how did this guy inexplicably link it to the brain-eating bug? Little did he know that all of this came from Lin Yi's divine sense transmission. Fei Yangxing's words were just a repetition. If he did not bring out the brain-eating bug, it would not be so easy to get away with it today. The spirit beasts surrounded the handsome man and Duan Muyu again as they walked toward the luxurious tent. Unexpectedly, Duan Muyu suddenly stopped and said, "Before we go to the bridal chamber, I still want to talk to my family for a while. I won't have this chance in the future. I hope you can fulfill my wish." "Then, okay, but don't let me wait too long." The handsome man was unexpectedly easy to talk to. Although he showed his cruel and indifferent side just now, at least he was good to Duan Muyu, his new wife. After that, the handsome man immediately led the spirit beasts to continue drinking and reveling. Duan Muyu called Fei Yangxing, whose legs were weak, over and continued to walk toward the luxurious tent. "The four of you stay outside." Duan Muyu ordered the four maids who followed closely behind. But the four maids looked at each other. "But what? From today onwards, I am your mistress. Don't my words count?" Duan Muyu put on the airs of a mistress. "This servant doesn't dare." The four maids quickly nodded. They had all seen the handsome man's favor for Duanmuyu. If they really offended this new mistress, none of them would be able to live in the future. Duanmuyu immediately walked into the large tent with Fei Yangsheng. The inside was luxuriously dressed, but Duanmuyu did not even look at it. She turned to look at Fei Yangsheng and said, "Tell me, what's the matter with you?" "Didn't I just say it?" Fei Yangsheng grinned. "You don't want to say it? Forget it then. I was thinking of finding a chance for you to escape, but it seems that there's no need for that now." Duanmuyu said indifferently. No. Please don't." Fei Yangsheng panicked and stammered, But what? Duanmuyu looked at him. "But I don't dare to say it." Fei Yangsheng said bitterly. "Don't dare to say it? Why don't you dare to say it?" Duanmuyu's interest was piqued. She only felt that Fei Yangsheng was abnormal, so she asked on a whim. At this time, Lin Yi's voice suddenly sounded in her mind, "Because I'm here, he doesn't dare to say it." "Lin Yi?" Duanmuyu was shocked. Although she did not have much contact with Lin Yi, she definitely had a deep impression of him. She recognized this voice as soon as she heard it. But the problem was, where was Lin Yi? At this moment, apart from her and Fei Yangsheng, there was no one else in the luxurious tent. As the eldest senior sister of the Yiling sect, Duanmuyu's perception was outstanding among experts of the same level. If Lin Yi was really here, how could she not sense him at all? Chapter 52-52. Duanmuyu was shocked again, but she still could not find any trace of Lin Yi. She could not help but look like she had seen a ghost. She looked at Fei Yangsheng and asked, "Where is he?" "I don't know," Fei Yangsheng said with a bitter face. He had the same reaction when he heard Lin Yi's voice for the first time. However, he was almost scared stiff by the spirit beasts around him, so he did not show it on his face. Otherwise, he would have given himself away. Then, this is... Duanmuyu did not know what to say for a while. Lin Yi's image in her mind was indeed unfathomable, but it should not be this unfathomable. She could only hear his voice but not see him. What the hell was this? "Senior sister Duanmu, do you think this is the manifestation of a ghost?" Fei Yangsheng suddenly said mysteriously. "The manifestation of a ghost?" Duanmuyu was shocked when she heard this, but she immediately showed a disapproving expression. The theory of gods and ghosts was far more popular in the cultivation world than in the secular world. Although many people did not believe in it, there were many believers. Many things were half true and half false. Even the most powerful and authoritative big shots could not explain it, which further confirmed the possibility of the theory of gods and ghosts. Of course, Duanmuyu did not believe in this. Not only did she not believe it, but most of the elite cultivators also disdained it. For cultivators, ghosts were the spirit. "It's true." Fei Yangsheng believed it without a doubt. He said seriously, "I didn't believe it at first, but I had to believe it. Otherwise, there would be no way to explain what happened today." "Senior sister Duanmu, do you know how I came in?" "How did you come in? Isn't it because of the brain-eating bug?" Duanmuyu asked curiously. "Of course not, I don't even know what a brain-eating bug is. What I just said was taught to me by Senior Lin Yi, one sentence at a time." Fei Yangsheng smiled bitterly and shook his head. Seeing that Duanmuyu was getting more and more confused, he said, "I just said that I was swallowed by the twin piranha flower, but the one who saved me was not a brain-eating worm, but Senior Lin Yi. After he saved me, we fell into a paradise filled with rare elixirs, but I was careless and fell into the hands of a river monster. When I woke up, I inexplicably appeared here. What does this have to do with ghosts?" Duanmuyu did not understand. "Senior sister Duanmu, think about it carefully. Since that terrifying river monster attacked me, it definitely won't let Senior Lin Yi off. Even if Senior Lin Yi is very strong, he's not invincible, right? Moreover, if Senior Lin Yi didn't become a ghost, How could we only hear his voice and not see him? Fei Yangxing deduced with a serious face. Duanmuyu was speechless after listening to his theory. This was a common problem for many people. Once they encountered some problems that they could not understand, they would naturally think about the mysterious side, and the more they thought about it, the more they could not extricate themselves. I have to say, Senior Lin Yi is really kind. He didn't forget to save me even though he has become a ghost. After I escape this disaster, I must burn more paper money for him. Humans and ghosts are different. This is the only thing I can do for him, Fei Yangxing said with a sigh. Humans and ghosts are different. Duanmuyu almost burst out laughing when she heard this. She thought about it and said, I think you're thinking too much. It's really strange to only hear his voice but not see him, but it's not completely inexplicable. I suspect that Lin Yi's spirit is here. Don't forget, he is said to have a spirit body. A spirit body? Fei Yangxing was stunned for a moment before he reacted, oh right, no one has mentioned it for so long, I almost forgot about it. Huh, I really can't hide it from Miss Duanmuyu. Lin Yi finally showed his spirit body in front of the two. Senior Lin. Fei Yangxing immediately showed a surprised and happy expression, but only he knew how much of it was real and how much was fake. A hint of joy flashed across Duanmuyu's face, but she quickly calmed down and said with a sigh, I really didn't expect you to have such amazing skills. It seems that you are indeed from a different world from us. Although you are not a ghost, to a certain extent, you are not much different from a ghost. Miss Duanmuyu's words hit the nail on the head. I admire you. Lin Yi did not deny it. As a woman, he had to admit that Duanmuyu was indeed a very discerning and insightful person, which was far above most men. Her words had clearly revealed Lin Yi's origin and essence. Brother Lin, you flatter me. Duanmuyu shook her head with a wry smile. Anyone with a little discerning eye could see that Lin Yi was not ordinary. In contrast, she should be considered a hindsight. Lin Yi smiled and looked up and down at Duanmuyu. He suddenly asked, Miss Duanmuyu, what do you think? This question was a little abrupt. If it was someone else, they might not be able to react for a while, but Duanmuyu was very clear about Lin Yi's question. She smiled bitterly and said, I have no choice, that's all. I guess so. Lin Yi nodded. With Duanmuyu's temperament and style, it was impossible for her to marry a spirit beast willingly. The only explanation was that she had no choice but to compromise. After a moment of silence, Duanmuyu forced a smile and said, Forget it, it is a rare surprise for me to be able to meet Brother Lin in this damn place. I am satisfied. Oh yes, Brother Lin, if it is difficult for you to go out like this, you might as well try to hide here for a while. I will think of a way to send you out of here safely. It can be considered as a repayment for your previous kindness. If it were any other woman in Duanmuyu's situation, they wouldn't be this calm even if they didn't cry to the heavens. However, Lin Yi could clearly feel that Duanmuyu hadn't given up just like that. It was just that he didn't know what she was thinking. Are you ready to accept your fate? Lin Yi probed. Accept my fate? Duanmuyu sighed and looked at Lin Yi with a complicated expression. Maybe. I will think of a way to struggle, but the possibility of success is not high. If it doesn't work when the time comes, I can only accept my fate. She wasn't that close with Lin Yi, and Fei Yangxing was there as well. She was already being very honest with Lin Yi, not to mention that Fei Yangxing was there. She wouldn't go any further than that, and there was no need for her to say it out loud. Lin Yi thought for a while and suddenly suggested, why don't we join forces? You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.